TikTok, keep liking the live, show some love.
So I think, to be fair, Nick, I think because let's be honest here, you got a lot of Israelis that watch you. I have a lot of people that don't like Israel that watch me. We're probably not going to convince each other. But what we can do is clearly outline our positions, and then we'll go back to Iran. So what we can do is here, I think it's a genocide. You don't think it's a genocide. So what we'll do is we already discussed it. You can just give your position, then I'll give my position, then we'll move on to discriminate bombing. Why I think it's indiscriminate bombing. Why you could say why you think it's discriminate to a degree, or what your position was. I don't want to mischaracterize it. Just to be fair, so people that are coming in and watching now, they know our positions. And then we can get into Iran, because this guy before that was moderating, bro, he's the fucking worst. He kept muting me. There was a lot of times where I noticed I would talk and I look and my mic is muted. So it was a nightmare to have him as a moderator, because he wanted to jump in and interrupt me all this time. So it was very annoying. So do you want to hit it first with why you think it's not a genocide, or do you want me to go first? We don't have to debate. We'll just put our argument there, then let the people go, so for the sake of brevity.
Yeah, mine is very clear. It just doesn't meet the definition of genocide that's put in by the 1948 convention, ratified in 1951. But you're the one making the positive claim, so maybe you should go first.
Yeah, so basically, genocide is the killing of a people in whole or in part. I understand that you talked about founding documents or how it originated or anything else like that. I understand that position that you were giving, but, you know, I'm keeping it nice and simple. The definition of genocide is the killing of a people, whole or in part. I would argue that what the IDF did constitutes that and fulfills it. The reason why I say this is because genocide experts, human rights groups have all pretty much concluded, for the most part, of course there's going to be some people that don't agree with it, that it is a genocide. So I know you make the argument that, you know, that's an appeal to authority. I think in this situation, this would be an exception based on, obviously, the nuance and the specificity of what genocide is, and comparing it to other historical events that have had less people be killed while still being constituted as a genocide. So that's my position. That's why I think it's a genocide. With you know, and then you add in, then you can also add in, because you had mentioned the other term that you gave before. You can mention the starvation, the blockade, not getting supplies in, the testimony of the doctors that talked about, you know, the difficulty of being able to have sterile tools to operate on people from, you know, significant injuries. You know, I think when you take the totality of the circumstances, right, the conflict, the war, getting bombs dropped on them, not bombers, okay, and then having no access to food, no access to water. I know you said, hey, the worst part of it was 2 months. Fair, but I still think that's unacceptable, okay? So I think when you combine all of these different things and you compare all the different events that were going on in the 3-year period, I think this overqualifies for a genocide. And many scholars and human rights organizations would agree with me. Obviously, you're entitled to your opinion. You think that it's not a genocide. That's fine. Do you have anything that you wanted to?
Yeah, first I just want to say to those watching on TikTok, I had to turn off his camera because TikTok's lame and it says unoriginal content. So if you guys want to see his face, just go over to YouTube. Fuck TikTok. Anyways, yeah, so a couple things. One, unless I misheard you, it seems like you missed, again, the keyword of intent, which is the most important thing when it comes to genocide. So when you look at the totality of things, the point is that, again, when we talk about intent and when you actually look at the Genocide Convention and commentary on genocide and all of the human rights experts on all of this, they will say that it requires what's known as dolus specialis, which is special intent. The difference between dolus specialis and just even intent by itself is specifically that you're not combining it with something else. Like, oh, they're trying to fight. Earlier when we were debating for, I think it was like 2 hours, you did admit that you're not like defending Hamas. You agree that they use human shields. You agree that they do all this stuff. Dolus specialis means you're doing something specifically to do genocide. Not, we're trying to actually get this, but we also don't really care if a lot of people are killed. Yeah.
May I, and my response to that, and I'm glad that you brought this up, my response to that is, I think with the blockade, not getting in humanitarian aid, not getting in supplies, I would argue that that was intent, because, I mean, it's foreseeable that if you don't allow medical supplies to get in, or food or water, right, that hospitals desperately need, you can foresee that this is going to lead to imminent death of people. Now, you might not agree with me on that, which is totally fine, but that's my That's my interpretation of it. That's my argument.
Yeah, but
And
see,
but I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Right.
Give
So
your full monologue. I'm not going to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, the issue, no, I'll just go off of that because that's fine. The issue is that, as I proved to you earlier, and we can look at the World Food Program from the United Nations saying that about 94,000 tons.
Someone said you have no sound on YouTube.
If you guys are on YouTube, just refresh. You will hear him because many people can hear him. Just refresh. Can you say something real quick, Myron?
Yeah, test, 1, 2, 3. Guys, give me ones in the chat if you guys can hear me. And then for your chat, I guess if they can hear me, they can give a 1. I can turn it up if they need me to.
Nope, I can see the mixer going up. Yeah, I see it. I think YouTube's fine. If you guys can't hear, just refresh. It's probably on your end. Anyways, sure. So the problem is with... So with the humanitarian aid not going in, so I got to look up the exact article, but when it talks about humanitarian aid, it specifically says that in the commentary that you actually are allowed to temporarily stop aid, right? It's not a permanent thing. You're allowed to do that. And on top of that, it specifically says that you need to make sure there's adequate aid, not daily aid, not weekly aid. There needs to be adequate. And as I told you, look at the World Food Program. They said 94,000 tons of food. Now, to be fair, they've done other interviews where they say it's 100,000 or 110,000, but I can pull up the one or send it to you later where it says 94,000 tons of food equals...
Yeah, please do.
Yep. 94,000 tons of food specifically equals for 1 million people 4 months. So again, for Gaza, since there's about a little over 2 million people, that's 2 months of food. They had 380,000 tons of food, according to the United Nations, even mixed with COGAT data, etc. They had 380,000 tons of food go in during the ceasefire, those 2-month-long ceasefire that was prior to the about 2-month-long blockade of food. And so 380,000, again, divided by 94,000 is 4. 4 times 2 months is 8 months. So they had about, give or take, 8 months of food. And that is actually an overrepresentation of how many calories per day. I think from what I remember, the UN says that's like counting something like 2,800 calories per day. That's not even like a 2,000 calorie per day. 8 months of food. The blockade was only for 2 months, which is allowed per the article. They had adequate food, and that is based off of the World Food Program's data and the United Nations data / COGAT.
Okay. So you would say, and again, I'm not even doing this to argue because we're going to have our positions. We're not going to agree. I just want to understand. So you're saying the fact that they brought food in negates the intent to kill them.
The fact that they have adequate negates them violating the Geneva Conventions 4.
Fair. Okay. And again, I still think 2 months is ridiculous. And again, the problem with this food stuff is you're going to get different stories. New York Times will report something. Haaretz will report something. It's very wildly different on this topic, especially with the starvation. Because, for example, like it was enough of a media spectacle for both France and the United Kingdom to say, well, if Netanyahu doesn't stop the blockade, we're going to recognize Palestine, right? So, but that's a whole other thing. When I'm looking at it from the totality of the circumstances, I understand your argument. I see your argument. You're saying, look, they had enough of food. Just because it didn't get in does not mean that Israel did not provide it. I see your argument. My argument is when you add in the bombs dropping, when you add in the lack of water, when you add in the lack of medical supplies, when you add in the humanitarian aid, I'm saying there's so many different components that one can argue that the intent was to get them killed with everything that was going on in the totality of the circumstances. I know that you're isolating, food as one, and I can see your argument. It's a good argument, right? Hey, they had sufficient food. I would say, okay, let's say we get rid of the food. Fine. I would argue the lack of, them destroying all these hospitals, the utensils not being there, not being clean. We've seen several doctors. One guy went on Tucker talking about the horrors that they witnessed. So I'm saying I think intent was sufficient. You might not. We can agree to disagree on that.
The problem is
discriminant bombing.
Sure, but the problem is that overall, when you're talking about, hey, these are all symptoms, if you add it all together, not individually, but those are also symptoms of war that is specifically in densely populated warfare fighting, as you admitted earlier, a guerrilla warfare unit. So these exact same things you're saying would also be evident in specifically the unique condition of Gaza. When we talk about the amount of aid that's going in to isolate that one, Israel put in more aid in like those 2 years by themselves than Saudi Arabia has done to Yemen in like 10 plus years. In fact, I can't, other than maybe, and I'd have to look at the exact numbers. Agreed. That being said, I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but other than maybe when the Allies did that huge amount of food airdrops during World War II, and even then I think it's more equal, other than maybe that one, I can't think of any other conflict where the rate of food or aid going into an area has been even equal, let alone higher than what Israel has brought into Gaza. And so when you're saying like, if this equals genocide, I get you're saying there's a totality of other things, but when you're adding that onto it amongst other things, then either you're saying there was a lot more genocides that have not been classified as genocides, in which case you're watering down the term. And then I say, fine, call it a genocide. And now I don't care, because the reason I care about genocide now is because it's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious thing to do. But if you water it down to apply to a broader sense of things, well, now I don't care anymore.
Well, again, that's why I said it's so. I think it's so important that we just both put our positions out there on we just put it out there, fully out there, and then people can make their decisions. Fair. And look, I'll give you credit. Like that's a good, very compelling argument from the food perspective. But my thing is, like, I'm looking at it from the totality that there's no way that you can't argue that there was malicious intent there to get them killed, knowing that you're withholding certain supplies that are critical for, sustenance, healthcare, all these other things. But that's fine. Discriminate. Do you want to take it first, and I can go into that? My argument is. My position is that there was discriminate and indiscriminate bombing. I think for you, you were saying the indiscriminate bombing didn't exist.
I'm saying indiscriminate bombing. When you say indiscriminate bombing, you're not talking about of like concrete and structure. You're talking about of the people, correct?
Both.
Okay, well, I don't care unless the argument's like concreticide. I don't particularly.
I think that's why me and you kept talking past each other, by the way, because I noticed you kept bringing up like how much the infrastructure destroyed, how much infrastructure destroyed, how many people died. I think that's where me and you kind of see eye to eye, because I look at both, the structures and the people.
Yeah, so for me, I don't give two shits about their structure. I think anything that can be used as an offensive capability should be destroyed. I just saw Gaza actually a couple weeks or 3 weeks ago. I saw inside of it, there's still a lot of stuff standing that I thought that could be used as an offensive capability. Now, if we're trying to combine that, which is what you were doing earlier, with genocide, because of the totality of things, one of the things outside of the food is specifically the indiscriminate bombing is what you said. And so we're obviously talking about human lives, not concreticide. Fuck their concrete. I don't give a shit. In fact, there's reports out there that specifically talk about how Hamas used a lot of rebar and things that are supposed to go into buildings to actually make them stronger. They actually used it in tunnels. And so there was reports of buildings that were collapsing that Israel didn't even strike, but they were close enough. And because they were not, they didn't have the rebar and strength inside of those buildings, because of what Hamas did, some of these buildings were collapsing. Fuck their concrete. I don't give a shit about that. But when we're talking about human lives, specifically those that are of innocent civilian lives, when you see about, I saw in October 2025, I don't remember the exact date, there was a report that came out that said 81% of the buildings, infrastructure, etc., was either damaged or destroyed. Now, damage can be pretty loose, but still, when you see such a high number of buildings that are hit, and you see that the death toll, assuming Hamas's numbers are even correct, which I don't believe, because they lie every single war about the amount of civilian per Hamas had died. When you see that,
understand your argument, how many would you say died roughly
in Gaza?
Yeah, roughly. You don't have to use the Hamas ministry.
Well, so what
Gaza ministry?
What I can do is go through history, and Hamas, like for example in Kasled, they got the number of death correct, but what they lied about was how many Hamas were killed versus civilians, and it wasn't even close. For example, if you go look at Kasled, I'm pretty sure it's Kasled, they said that they lost 50 Hamas fighters. 2 years after the war had ended, Israel came out and said they killed up to 700, and of course the whole world was like, Israel's lying, blah blah blah. 2 years after the war had ended, in a Haaretz article, Hamas came out and admitted that they lost 600 to 700 Hamas fighters during that war. They waited for the world to move on, waited almost 2 years, and then they said, hey, Israel actually was right, we were lying. But they didn't get the total death wrong. They got the ratio incorrect, or they lied. And so I don't know how many have been killed. What I do know is that, again, as I said earlier, Walidi...
Would it be fair to say you think it's less than 70?
Less than 70,000?
Yeah. You think they overrepresented that number?
Well, I know that they've used natural deaths in their death toll. I know they've used people that Hamas themselves have killed because they kill Palestinians that don't agree with them or go against them. We know this to be a fact. I've seen those names, like the report of Hamas killing them, and they've been on the death toll list. So, but then you're right. There's also people that are still under the rubble. According to the Gaza Ministry of Health, there's only up to 10,000. Everyone has this idea that once they move the rubble, there's going to be 200,000 bodies. No, the fuck it's not. Even Hamas themselves, the Gaza Ministry of Health said there's about 8 to 10,000 missing. Even if we assume that's 100% death rate and they're just not missing because they're just not tracking where they're at, even if it was 100%, that's an extra 10,000 on the death toll. But no, I have no idea. We can use 70,000, but I want to know not, is that 70,000 civilians? What is the separation between civilian and terrorists? Because if it's a 2-to-1 ratio, Dude, the world average when airstrikes actually kill somebody is 5 to 7 civilians per 1 death. In the region in Aleppo 2016, it was closer to 28 civilians per 1 terrorist death. So I don't care so much about the number. Obviously, I'm against war. I think war is better to not be in it, but I'm not a pacifist. I'm not a pussy. If you start war, I don't do this whole like, well, it needs to be proportionate. No, the war needs to happen until you accomplish the goals of war.
Okay. So here's my I'll give my take on this, and I think we talked past each other as well with this talk. So my argument is that there was both discriminate and indiscriminate bombing, and my foundation for this, why I'm arguing this, is you have a place like Gaza, which is extremely densely populated with 2.2 million people, right? You got a bunch of hospitals, etc. The air campaign that Israel launched, I think me and you both agree that it was thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of bombs that were dropped, or bombing campaigns, excuse me, airstrikes that were done, right? In order for you to bomb an area that densely populated and destroy 80% of the infrastructure, you have to indiscriminately bomb. Like, it's just like like 1 + 1 is 2. So when you add in 80% of the infrastructure, I'll go conservative. 70% of the infrastructure being gone, right? The bombing of hospitals, the bombing of religious institutions, the bombing of camps that people were told to go to where they would be safe, right? When you're bombing all these different places, there's no way that you're not indiscriminately bombing. Now, I want to be clear about this. Am I saying every single air campaign was indiscriminate? Of course not. Some were discriminate, where they're like, hey, we know where Abu Ubaidah is. We can do a direct strike. We're going to go get him. We can maybe minimize the casualties here. But there were other times where, they probably were indiscriminate. They're like, hey, we think a guy's in here, blow it up. It is what it is. We could deal with the ratios, etc. And a lot of people, and I'm very cautious to say this. I didn't want to say this in the debate before, but I'm going to bring it up because I'm very skeptical, right? Like, I'm not one of these morons that's like, oh, I'm just going to believe all the Hezbollah. Different reports put out that somewhere between 70 to 90% of the people that were killed in Gaza were civilians, right? They say somewhere between only 10 to 20 were Hamas.
Yeah, that was debunked. I can explain. Well, no, I can explain. It comes from Abraham. I can't remember his last name is, and he himself admitted on X that he was pretty much being disingenuous. But a couple things.
There was also an IDF internal document that came out.
No, there wasn't. So that was what Abraham said. He said that he personally saw one, and when even his own side was asking, can he see it? He never ended up producing it. The IDF came out and said, we don't even have this document, because it was even also in talking about, there were separate documents talking about like security force, and the IDF said, we don't even track them. That's not even part of our organization. And so you're lying. And so he could have debunked the IDF. It would have been major news by just producing the document. Still to this day, he never did. On top of that, the 80 to 90% civilians, what he did was he took an arbitrary date, okay, and he said 8,900 people were killed that had named fighters from just Hamas and PIJ. He ignored every other terrorist organization. There's dozens of them, including PRC, Army of Islam, Mujahideen Brigades, PFLP, DFLP. He ignored all of those. He ignored anyone from the not military wing of Hamas. He counted them as civilians, which obviously is, even international law wouldn't state that. And then on top of that, he ignored everyone that didn't have a name. So anyone who ambushed an IDF soldier and the IDF soldiers turned and killed that person from them coming out of a tunnel or a building or a hospital, whatever, it doesn't matter where, he didn't count any of those. He counted them all as civilians. So that's where the whole 80 to 90% civilian came. Yeah. It's something that nobody should accept unless you're completely biased. It is, if the IDF did the same thing on the opposite end, I would be telling Zionists, don't use that. That's fucking ridiculous. But real quick.
And that's, go ahead.
I just want to say, because to get back to the indiscriminate, as you said, 80%, or you said you'll go conservative, even 70% of the buildings destroyed, then why is the number so significantly different? Because the death toll, if we believe Hamas right now, is a little over 3%. And that's, again, that's not civilians. That's including all deaths, terrorists, civilians, and everything. If it was indiscriminate bombing and you don't give a shit, you're just bombing regardless if there's a child there, a Hamas guy there, a woman, man, whatever, then you would see that the 70% of destroyed buildings, I don't know if you know, but if a building collapses on you, you're probably going to die. Then you would see about 70% of the population dead, or at least something close. But we're not getting within 5 or 10% of that. We're at 3% and 70%. That shows that it's not indiscriminate bombing. Now, if you're talking about indiscriminate bombing of like the poor little buildings, okay, fine, I'll concede that, but I also don't give a shit.
And that's and again, this is why it's so important that we're talking now versus the other guy getting it, muting me and stuff like that. Like, that's what I meant. When I was talking about indiscriminate bombing, I was counting both infrastructure and people. Because if the infrastructure is gone, right, well, these are homes, these are there might have been tools there that they could have used, hospitals, etc. So that's why when I said indiscriminate bombing, I was counting both the civilians and the infrastructure. Now, to be charitable to your argument, because you're saying, well, look, they destroy 70% of the stuff, why did only 3% of the people die? My response to that was, well, some people moved, right? Obviously, there were some people that were stubborn that stayed and said, I'm not leaving. There were other people that moved south towards Rafah. And then some people went to camps or whatever. So yeah, the reason why it's not going to line up is because a lot of people moved. But my argument is that it's indiscriminate bombing because they destroyed both the infrastructure and people died in that process.
Right,
So
but you're using that for genocide,
together.
though. You're using that for genocide. If you didn't use this argument for genocide, then we wouldn't even be arguing this right now.
No. I was using this argument to say it's indiscriminate bombing. I didn't even bring genocide into this. I don't know why. I don't know how that got brought up or whatever, but I was making the argument that, they're indiscriminately bombing. That's what I was saying. And then genocide came up later.
Well,
but that wasn't
earlier
really attached to it.
Okay, but earlier you admitted, and you straight up said, I was right, that Hamas uses these civilian areas and they controlled every part of Gaza before October 7th. So what exactly would you like Israel to attack if it's not civilian buildings?
So here's the thing. The reason why I'm so hard on Israel and why I'm so critical of them is because they have a very capable intelligence program. And you know this shit. Your audience, maybe for your audience, my audience, they have very intelligence intel apparatus between the Shin Bet, 8300, Mossad, etc. They can do targeted strikes, and they are the number one when it comes to assassinations. So to me, when I look at the capabilities of Israel and then the knowledge that they have, the amount of informants that they have in Gaza, where they're able to track these guys down, and
they don't have that many informants in Gaza. No, I'll tell you why. The reason they have like informants in Lebanon is because a lot of people hate Hezbollah, and there's a lot of even Christians and stuff. You can't really have that in Gaza, and if you do, they're not going to ever get to high-end positions, because in Gaza, when you go there, they're just going to be like, hey, what family are you from? And let's say you're Mossad agent, you're like, oh, I'm from this family. They're going to be like, no, that's my family. I know they can't have that in Gaza.
I understand that. It's of course, again, I'm giving you all the different tools that they're utilizing to do their strikes. So when they have these capabilities, I just look at it like, okay, you have these capabilities. Why are you bombing the entire area, destroying 70% of the infrastructure, killing a bunch of people, when you have capabilities where you can assassinate someone like Ismail Haniyeh in a oppositional country secretly, right?
Because
or when they did that Operation Rising Lion, where they're able to get behind enemy lines, assemble drones, attack them from behind, destroy their air defense. Like, you have the capability of doing all these things, but in Gaza, where Hamas is a joke of a military group, let's be honest, they're a rinky-dink paramilitary group using like World War II weaponry. Like, you can't go ahead and be more sophisticated with your attacks on.
Why would they?
Their infrastructure there.
Why would they? It's the same thing of when we took out Osama bin Laden. It was a completely different type of operation than when we're bombing other areas like Mosul, for example. It's not because you're just choosing one time to do this and one time to do the other. It's completely different operations. For Gaza, they made it very clear. They didn't say we're going after every single person that puts on a green headband and screams Allahu Akbar. They don't care about that. You're not going to defeat the ideology of Hamas. They'll either continue to exist because there's always going to be Islamist extremists, or they'll just find another group. But that's never
ideology,
right? But that's never what Israel said. Israel said that they wanted to eliminate the offensive capabilities of Hamas or terrorists. So for that, you absolutely take down that building, and you absolutely fucking should. And the first thing you should do to make sure you don't do genocide is get them out of that area. And that's why you see a 3% death rate for a 70% destruction of buildings.
Okay. What I'm saying, though, is that I get that. But this is exactly why Israel's in the predicament that they're in right now, right? If they had been a bit more patient, a bit more refined, be a bit more discriminate, not rely so much on lavender and these, ridiculous ratios. I know what people are going to say. Hey, well, these ratios are the best in modern warfare. Fine. But it's not, it's not the 1950s.
What's wrong with lavender exactly?
Well, that was the AI program that they were using.
They don't use that solely. There's like a system of like 8 different things. Lavender is one thing. We do the same thing. So does every other.
It's one of them. It's one of them.
What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it was having some pretty high ratios of, Hamas fighter to civilians. So
right. That's why there's another 7 steps or whatever it is. It's not like they just do that only.
Here's the thing. You're saying, hey, it's a war. Just do it. I'm saying, cool, you do that. This is why everyone hates Israel now. Does that make sense? So they looked at it like, let's just bomb the place. Let's get rid of these guys. And this is exactly why Israel's the most hated country in the world right now, because in their pursuit of removing Hamas by any means necessary and bombing the entire infrastructure, they killed a lot of people. I think that's irrefutable.
Wasn't that much?
A significant amount of innocent people, a lot of children. This looks horrible, and this is why no one likes Israel. And the thing is that they have the ability to do better and assassinate. They're the number one country for assassination.
So hold on, they have done better. Can you name anyone else that will actually? First off, remember, Gaza's very unique because, for example, in Mariupol, when Russia goes in the first 25 days, there's some reports, we don't know the actual numbers because Russia still controls them. They won't allow anyone to go check it. They won't allow anyone to investigate it. But there's some numbers based off of satellite imagery and mass graves where, and remember, Mariupol is a place of like, I think 410,000. So it's like 1/4, 1/5 the size of Gaza. In 25 days, so let's just call it a month, they killed about as many people, and again, some reports would say even more than Israel did in Gaza in the whole almost 3 years now. And again, that's in a place that has significantly smaller population. So if you go per capita, it definitely is a lot more. They did that in 1 month. Now, why did Russia not kill even more than that? Because the Ukrainians, and just like any other war in history, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, they got to get the fuck out of the way. But the Gazans, we were in a very unique position. Not only is it a tiny, tiny little strip of land, but the Arabs said, fuck you guys, close the door on them, you guys stay in there. So even with that context, Israel, again, we have a 3% death, right? And we have 70% destruction of buildings, if not more. So that shows very clearly that they did go out of their way to make sure they didn't kill people, because if they didn't give a shit, these percentages would be, if not the same, closer to the same. That's just math.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, oh, well, it's only 3%. I'm just not going to accept that. And the reason why I'm not going to accept that is because the Israelis, right? Keep in mind, October 7th happened. They lost 1,200 people, and then what did they do in retaliation? They responded by bombing Gaza, destroying 70% of the infrastructure, and killing 70,000 plus people, many of them being children. So again, this is like that crazy double standard that I criticize Zionists for. When we talk about Palestinians, it's like, it's war, bro. It's no big deal. 70,000, that's casualty of war. They shouldn't have started the war, right?
I wanted the Palestinians to get out. I wanted them to not be in that area.
I'm giving you the typical Zionist/Israeli government thing.
Okay.
But when we talk about Israelis, right, 1,200 of them die, it's a catastrophe. It's the worst thing ever. We're going to get them and we're going to destroy them. I mean, Yoav Gallant literally said, we're going to cut off the water. We're going to cut off the food. They're human animals, blah, blah, blah. So my issue is that we do not exercise the same degree of, humanity for Palestinians that we do for Israelis. And then we give Israelis like full-on authority and power. You know what? Just bomb them. Who cares? You kill 70,000. It's only 3% while destroying 70% of the infrastructure. No big deal. So that's the issue here, right? Is the
but the difference is one is a response. Yeah, go ahead.
I get that. And you made the argument earlier that proportionality doesn't matter. I think it does, and that is a big reason why Israel, their reputation is in the shitter right now internationally, and this is why so many people don't like Israel, because I know what you're saying. Proportionality might not matter from a warfare standpoint, from a military standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, but I'm talking from a holistic perspective where this looks optically horrible for Israel. It is why they are an isolated country now. This is why no one likes Israel. So I see what you're saying, but in my eyes, you're saying that the ends justify the means. I'm saying they don't justify, and Israel's painted themselves in a corner and hurt themselves diplomatically long term. Yeah,
a couple things, and sure, I agree slightly to that, but there's a couple problems. One, again, you're trying to both sides of the situation. One's a response, and one is one. I agree with you. If Hamas had any fucking bearing or smart, there was a poll done by the Arab Research Institute after showing that Gazans and Palestinians in the West Bank had an 89% support to the military wing of Hamas after what they did on October 7th, even being informed what happened on October 7th, 89% positive rating for them. So if the Palestinians were actually intelligent and Hamas was actually intelligent, they would know you probably shouldn't start a war with somebody who will kick your ass. As you said earlier, America's Big Daddy, and so they get to do this, and this. I agree with you 100%, and we should fucking do that because we are Big Daddy. Same thing in this regional conflict. You don't start something like that and then cry fucking victim after the fact. When we keep saying 70,000, 70,000, 70,000, I have no idea what that ratio is. The reason I know it's actually not as bad is because
wildly.
Right, but the problem is
some people will say 90, some people will say 50, some people will say, I'm saying even if it's 50-50, that's unacceptable. Is my argument.
It's not. And so the reason is because, again, if Israel was truly doing indiscriminate bombing the way I at least thought you were saying before, if they were truly doing this for the
bad host. You kept muting me. So it's fine. Like that you didn't hear because I was combining both, but it's fine.
Right.
It's fine.
But if we're talking about that, if they truly were doing genocide, because again, earlier, their whole claim was that the totality of genocide, then I would have no problem talking about this. I'd still be pro-Israel and I would say they need to do better. But the problem is we always start off with pro-Palestinians saying things, buzzwords, genocide, for example, etc. And then when we get into the arguments, we start going into the like, well, it's just wrong that they have this many deaths. Okay, but that's not genocide. Now, as for how many deaths there are, again, it's actually not that high. Now, to answer your question on why Israel is so hated and everything, I think a significant amount is propaganda and also double standards, sometimes singular standards that are held against Israel. Because if Israel's
when did this hate come though, Nick?
When did it increase a lot? Yeah. Post October 7th. Right.
Before
that doesn't debunk what I said.
And I could tell, but what this is what I'm trying to say. Prior to October 7th, and I know this because I used to, this is literally what got me demonetized, being critical of Israel or, them boys, I know you're on TikTok, I'll keep it clean, would be an instant ban. It would be an instant ban. It wasn't until the atrocities of after, October 7th and what Israel did that people started saying, you know what, screw Israel. Most Americans, Nick, didn't even know what Zionism was but prior to October 7th. They didn't even know. So this war took a very protected class of people in America that were above reproach, and people figured out what they support, and this is why Israeli approval is in the
5 years ago when I was talking about this, right? Because I didn't start talking about Israel. I know maybe you think I am, or a lot of people do. I'm not Jewish. I didn't start talking about Israel. I didn't talk about Jews. I didn't grow up around fucking Jews. I was doing content on TikTok talking about just like American politics and right-wing conservative, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until I started talking about Israel, and this is way before October 7th, that I actually got banned. So I believe you. I'm sure there was people getting banned, but I was banned for the exact opposite of what you're saying. It wasn't until I started defending Israel and going against anti-Semitism that I actually got banned. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but you have to understand the exact same thing happened to me for the exact opposite reason. That being said, I agree with you. Most Americans still to this actually day, I don't think really understand what Zionism is. But my point is that I agree with you. The upswing was after October 7th, but the propaganda and the nonsense of the hyperbole and exaggeration when Israel does something, even if Israel does do something wrong, of course they can, they're not perfect. It has to turn into these exaggerated words. The Palestinians are the only people going through genocide, open air prison, concentration camps, apartheid, starvation, level 5 famine, all at the same time. Like, they're the only people in the world. Is that more likely that they're going through all of the biggest atrocities in the world all at the same time in history? Or is it more likely that there's just propaganda and that there's a lot of fucking Pallywood and lying and bullshit that's being spread against Israel? Does that mean Israel's perfect? Fuck no. No, of course they're not.
They always say the first casualty of war is the truth, right? Like, both sides are going to push propaganda for their cause. That's just a part of the game.
True.
But when it comes, just coming back, so I make sure that we covered the genocide thing. When we were talking about the indiscriminate thing, just like I'll just put a bow on this. My argument is 70% infrastructure gone, a significant amount of people dead, children being dead, hospitals destroyed. I think all the hospitals except for one have been destroyed.
No.
To me, when you bomb a place to that level, okay, I would say that's very good evidence for indiscriminate bombing. Now, again, just to finish off what I was saying, there was still targeted strikes. There was still discriminate bombing. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I am saying is that both types of bombing were done, indiscriminate and discriminate. That's my position. What's your
well, first off, the hospitals, that's nonsense. Most of all but one of the hospitals have been destroyed. No, of course not. That's not even close to true. Al-Najaf hospital wasn't even touched. There's multiple hospitals. I don't remember all the names. There's 6 main hospitals. If you add in other things, which they do in the news
They're
about
not
hospitals.
Fully operational.
Well, okay, but that's totally different argument. So you said they were all but one destroyed. Now, if you're saying they're not operational, yeah, but most of them, for example, Al-Najaf Hospital is not
destroyed.
No, it's not actually. For example, Najat Hospital, and this is how the media kind of twisted. If you look up Najat Hospital, I remember, because I looked this up some time ago, there's an article that almost implies it's been striked, but it's worded very carefully. The way it's worded is, people leave Al-Najat Hospital due to strikes. But when you read the article, it turns out there were strikes down the street. And so out of fear, some people left. But if you read just the headline, people will think, oh, look, Israel destroyed that hospital. And they did this all the fucking time. Even the European hospital, when they took out Mohammed Sinwar, there was some damage. But the actual strike wasn't even on the hospital. It was technically right outside of it. But if you read Al Jazeera, it'll say this was struck, and then people like you turn it into destroyed. But hold on, when you said not fully operational, true. But a lot of the times, including Najd Hospital, for example, the reason it wasn't fully operational is because people just left that area. There wasn't even shelling of that hospital. So there's a big difference, and I want to make sure you're clear between destroying, not even damaging, destroying all but one hospital, and these hospitals are not quote unquote fully operational or partially operational. That is a big difference.
Okay, so I went ahead and double checked here. It's saying 36 in Gaza, just over half are partially functioning, but none at full capacity.
So
That's
you
kind of where it's
agree?
at right now.
Well, okay, but so do you agree? It was not correct to say all but one were destroyed.
Okay.
When something's not fully operational, it's because people leave that area. It's not because Israel went and just blew the whole thing up. It's because they left the area. When they go back, the hospital's still there. It's not. That's why it's not operational. Not because they blew the whole thing up.
Let me tell you why I said destroyed. Let me be explicit so you understand where I came from with this. I've listened to several doctors talk about their experiences when they were in Gaza rendering aid. They didn't have any of the supplies. They didn't have a sterile environment to work with. They didn't have any of the resources they needed to effectively do their jobs.
Sounds horrible.
So yeah, and so when I say destroyed, what I am saying is, yes, if doctors aren't able to do their jobs because the hospital isn't operational, it's effectively destroyed almost at that point.
That's just extremely disingenuous. But that's what I mean about pro-pallies is you guys use this extreme hyperbole, and then when you get called out on it, you kind of go, well, what I meant by destroyed was they don't have sterile. Like, come on, dude.
Dude, if you can't even, because here's the thing, if a hospital is operating at a portion of its functionality, it's effectively destroyed. It's useless.
No.
And I'm going off of what the doctor said themselves. Listen to all them talk.
Is this the same? Is this the same?
Lying about this? Whether it's the. What are you gonna say? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is this the same Doctors Without Borders that let GHF members die just because they didn't want to help Americans? Those doctors? Are we talking about the same doctors that said that they personally saw IDF soldiers snipe kids, but then they later admitted that they weren't even in the field and they weren't even allowed to leave the hospital, so it's impossible to even know who did or didn't snipe? But like, yeah, I agree with you. There's people that go on the fucking Tucker Carlson.
I listened to a few of the doctors talk about this.
I spoke to them too.
Based on what they said, it pretty much is. You want to say, "Hey, destroyed's a tough word." Fine.
One of the doctors took a syringe and pumped air into a hostage.
What was that?
One of the doctors took a syringe and pumped air into the hostage to kill them. Is these the same doctors or different ones?
I don't know I don't know who that is.
One of the doctors was actually holding Noah Argamani as a hostage and an Al Jazeera journalist.
I didn't hear about that story. What I'm telling you though is that the hospitals are now fully functioning. They're effectively destroyed because you can't do what you need to do in a lot of these places. If you want to say destroyed is a too strong of a word, fine. Significantly diminished in their capacity to render aid.
We don't know that. I don't know what partially can mean 1%. It can mean 99% or anything between. I have no idea.
We don't know because we're not there. So this is why we have to rely upon the testimony of the doctors. And they basically all said the same exact thing. I don't have enough resources to do what I need to do. I don't have sterile equipment. I don't have any, I don't have an operating bed to work on. I can't even put them under anesthesia.
It's funny they keep saying this, but we keep getting videos out of hospitals in Gaza. In fact, during the Abu Shafia, he specifically came out. He was the Kamal Adwan hospital director. He came out and said that his entire hospital, and we're not even just talking about a low-end doctor, he was the director. He came out and said his entire hospital was completely shut down. It had no gas, no electricity, nothing. Then the very next day, we see a video of him, not even 12 hours later, of him with people in his emergency room with all the lights on, all the equipment, beds, everything that you would expect to see in a hospital, even in America, really. And so, yes, I agree with you. Doctors come out and say this shit, and then they end up debunking themselves the day later.
And the other thing also that's important, remember where this conversation started. This conversation started because I made the argument that there was a significant amount of bombing that was indiscriminate. So if 50% of the hospitals are pretty much not functioning, and then the other 50% are barely functioning, like you've pretty much destroyed.
Not barely. We don't know.
Right now, dude.
No, partially does not mean barely. That's not the same thing. Partially can be a wing shutdown. We have no idea what it means. I'm not saying you're not right or wrong, but I'm saying you're being disingenuous to take that word and assume you know what it means.
Well, here's the thing. I'm combining everything. I'm combining the doctor testimony alongside half the hospitals being completely not functional, and then alongside them being half functional, and then I'm combining all of it, and it's like, okay, well, if you've bombed that many hospitals and that 50% of the hospital infrastructure is gone, well, I would argue, remember, I'm saying all this to back up my claim that there was a significant amount of indiscriminate bombing, and I'm using the hospitals as an example of that. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, your original thing was that all but one hospital was destroyed, and now you're turning it into half of them are partially functioning because of either people had left
I'm looking it up right now. Half are non-functional, and the other half are partially functioning, but none are at full capacity.
Right, and so I have no idea what that means. We don't know the reason. Even if something is not, that doesn't mean it was even attacked or destroyed. There could have been zero shelling on it, and it could be not operational.
How about this one? Since we're nitpicking on partially and we don't know what that means, I'm using the doctor's testimony, but let's go ahead. Let's say they knocked out 50% of the hospital infrastructure completely cooked.
I don't even think they've done anywhere near that.
I'm looking it up right now. 50% have been destroyed. Like
50% have been destroyed. No, see, that's the problem.
Hold on. It says right here. Half of them.
What are you reading right now? I'll look it up.
Service, damage, or destruction.
What are you reading right now? I'll look it up right now. What are you reading?
There's a couple different sources here. Vatican News, Next Century Foundation.
Are you reading AI, Myron?
News again. Yeah, but I mean, I Googled it. Like that's where it comes from, is AI.
Jesus Christ. Give me the source.
You were using AI.
I was never, literally never was when I turned. Okay, I will post that video when I turn the video on
the internet during our entire debate. I did not look
at
one thing.
Couple things. I'm going to tell you, and everyone will see when I post the video of our part 1 debate. I never once used AI. I used an actual USA Today article, and also I wasn't looking stuff up the whole time. Half the time I was just walking back and forth on the room. Okay, regardless, it doesn't really matter. Okay, does that really matter? Facts are facts. I definitely wasn't, but even if you think so, who fucking cares? Facts are facts. Can you tell me what the actual source is that says half of them have been destroyed? I want that source.
Yes, it says right here, just over half, 18 to 19, are partially functioning, but none at full capacity to face severe shortages. This comes from Vatican News and then Next Century Foundation.
Okay, that's not the same thing as 50% have been destroyed, as in the entire thing has been pretty much fucking collapsed.
Dude, it literally says now you're being pedantic. The remainder, right, 17 to 19, roughly 17 to 19 are non-functional or out of service due to damage, destruction, or inaccessibility.
So wait, did you say 17%?
17 to 19 of the 36 hospitals.
Okay,
so 50% is cooked.
How is wait, you just said 17 to 19 of the hospitals total have been destroyed.
Yes, of the 36. Are non-functional or out of service due to damage, destruction,
17
or inaccessibility.
19 of Gaza hospitals destroyed due to damage. And you're reading Vatican News. Do you know what they're quoting? Because obviously Vatican News is not a primary source. Do you know what they're getting that from?
Again, you can get it from different perspective. You can look up different sources or whatever. And
yeah, here's who right now. It's just saying that it's damaged or destroyed. I'm not going to deny that some hospitals have not. Like, for example, Al-Shifa, even though that wasn't struck with airstrikes, they did a lot of raids on there. And the Kamal Adwan Hospital, for example, the guy, and there's a whole entire interrogation where the first director who was arrested, he says in this entire interrogation that Hamas has been using it for over 10 years. He's worked with the Hamas group in his hospital, and they've used the offices for that. Listen, I think it's awful that Hamas utilizes hospitals, mosques, churches. Even in prior conflicts, church leaders have come out and said that Hamas uses our compounds to launch rockets into Israel. So I think that's awful, but that's not against.
What hospitals do you think are? What hospitals do you like? I think I'm being pretty conservative by saying 50% are completely, almost out of completely not functional.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I didn't agree with your first statement. That's a totally different. That's a totally different statement.
You don't like the word destroyed. Fine.
Don't you think it's important to be adequate with that word? It's a pretty serious word.
If you're not able, okay, what is the purpose of a hospital? To save lives, correct?
Sure.
If the purpose of a hospital is to save lives, and the surgeons that are there can't save lives because they don't have the equipment.
Right. That's why. But that's why
it's functionally destroyed.
Dude, that's why Israel worked with over like 100. Right. That's why Israel worked with like over 100 different NGOs. Many of them were specifically to set up field hospitals to replace them from having to leave these areas. I agree with you. If Israel wanted to kill them and just destroy their hospitals, why would they build the field hospitals? Why even do that? Why do that?
Well, remember, this all comes back because I said this was all just evidence. It's evidence to my point that there was indiscriminate bombing, and I used
that's not
hospitals as a data
indiscriminate.
point.
You'd have to prove that they were not targeting Hamas or Hamas was not in those hospitals. You'd have to prove that because Article 19 of Geneva Convention 4 specifically allows for this. You can't just say hospitals were blown up or shelled or raided, therefore indiscriminate bombing. It would be indiscriminate if they didn't actually give a shit.
That's what I'm saying. They don't give a shit. That's why they bombed the hospital.
I'm saying that Hamas has routinely utilized these areas, not just hospitals, but to include them for their military operations. And according to Article 19, if enemy belligerents utilize specifically even hospitals, is called out in Article 19. Now, go ahead.
This comes back to the doctor testimony. Okay. A lot of the doctors were asked, did you ever see Hamas at any of these hospitals or whatever? They all said no for the most part.
Doesn't mean anything.
Now, and I see what you're saying.
How would they know who's Hamas? How would they know who's Hamas?
Regardless, what I'm trying to tell you is,
all right.
Yeah, you're right. They're in plain clothes and everything else like that. But what I'm saying is that the Israelis, right, whether they blew it up or not, okay, and because they thought it was Hamas or whatever, the bottom line I'm trying to make here is they're blowing up hospitals. Okay, I doubt all 36 hospitals were Hamas databases like the Israelis claim.
I never said anything about database. I don't give a shit if they were using it as a database or storing weapons. Blow that shit up.
That's what the Israelis use to justify blowing up hospitals.
Sometimes they were, sometimes they were not. I have no idea.
Okay.
The European hospital, when Mohammed Sinwar was taken out, there was an entire tunnel, and they showed that tunnel. That wasn't a data center.
How many hospitals of the 36 do you think were being utilized by Hamas to conduct military operations?
In the time of the strike, or just in general, how much do they use?
In general,
in general, I think Hamas uses even before October 7th, I think Hamas uses every fucking square inch of Gaza. Now, does that mean they're using it at the time of like the strike? I don't know, and I can't answer that. There's no way. I'd be disingenuous if I try to answer a percentage. But in general, you think Hamas is what? You think in their hearts are like
they're using 50% of the hospitals?
Okay, let me ask you. So you do agree that Hamas, at least in history, not even just after October 7th, has utilized things like hospitals?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So why would Hamas be like, that hospital we're going to use, but please don't use that one? What is there something about their heart about Al-Najjar Hospital versus Al-Ali Hospital versus Al-Shifa Hospital? Like, why would they use one, but the other one they're like, that's off limits, don't use that one?
It all comes down to strategic purpose, right? Like, does this one have a better vantage point? Are we able to set up rockets here? Look, see,
every hospital's a strategic purpose. Every single one.
With you in good faith, like,
right?
I'm not going to sit here and be like they don't use hospitals. They absolutely do, but to bomb and destroy 50% of them and say it's all Hamas, bro, that's ridiculous. That's not them exercising any real level of discernment. That's them just blowing it up.
It is, and I'll explain why. So what is so you agree that Hamas militarily could never beat Israel? Is that a fair statement?
What was that?
Militarily, Hamas could not beat Israel. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no, they can't.
Okay, so how does Hamas, I'm going to use the word win loosely just for lack of better terms, but how did they beat or win against Israel in war if it's not militarily? What is their number one?
What you're going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fighting guerrilla warfare. They're fighting.
No, not even that.
Right?
I was going to talk about propaganda, whether it's true or not, even just propaganda against Israel and international pressure. In fact, Sinwar himself specifically said this. He said, "Dead Palestinians were a good thing because it allows us to use more international pressure against Israel." That is the words of Sinwar, and he's correct. That's literally the only way Hamas. Correct. Yeah.
You talking about Yahya Sinwar?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we know this to be true because, I mean, dude, you have to be super disingenuous to not admit that. The way Hamas can even come close to beating Israel is not through military capability. It's through international pressure. And so when you say, well, I agree they use hospitals, but it just depends on what the strategic event, dude, every hospital is a strategic advantage because if they can strike Israel and do ambushes from an apartment building or a hospital, the hospital will always be strategically advantageous because if Israel even so much as sort of responds with even just a tank shell, the entire world goes, Al Jazeera, Israel bombed Al-Shifa hospital, whatever, pick a hospital. And what does Hamas lose? Yeah, sure, maybe Israel's successful, they take out one or two guys with that tank shell. So every hospital is strategically advantageous for them. Every single one.
Yeah. Again, I seriously doubt that Hamas was using 50% of the hospital infrastructure to conduct warfare. I know what you're saying. They use hospitals.
Based off what?
I'm not denying that they use hospitals, but to say they're using 50% of those hospitals during this conflict.
In a 3-year or almost 3-year period, you don't think that's? Can you just tell me? Obviously, there's no way I Can you just tell me
I don't think so.
there's no way you or I are ever going to be able to be like, we have this fact. Obviously, we're using a little bit of speculation, but we can use common sense.
We have to. You're never going to know.
Right. So can you give me your common sense of the logic that you're using to make you admit that Hamas has no problem using hospitals, but for some reason they don't want to use too many? Like, what's your logic there?
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Again, you have the doctors. Okay. You have the doctors.
The
coming
doctors
in
are
and
never
saying,
going to know. That's
Okay,
just
see,
disingenuous.
well, they know more than me and you though. Like they know more. They were there. They know more than me and you, right? Like we're operating completely blind. They're at least there. Okay. And remember, I'm telling you this, okay, to make the argument that Israel bombs indiscriminately. And I'm saying that a component of their indiscriminate bombing are hospitals. Now, of these hospitals, right, there's 36. We know roughly 50% of them are just non-operational. You didn't like me using the word destroyed. My argument for that is I'm going off the doctor testimony where they can't even do basic stuff and have anesthesia. That's effectively destroyed because if a hospital can't do its job and save lives, which is what it's there to do, it's effectively destroyed and useless. So that is my point. Now, you might not like the word destroyed. Fine. Incapacitated to a significant degree where they can't fulfill their duties. Fair, if we want to be completely precise. But the bottom line is that I do think that there was a significant amount of indiscriminate bombing in Gaza where Israel was kind of like, we don't care, we're just going to blow it up, and hospitals are a component of that. There was other places too as well that were bombed civilian structures. You're talking about religious places, etc. And I know what you're going to say. Well, Hamas uses Hamas. They use all these things. Well, at what point are you going to use Hamas every single time to justify blowing things up, right? There's got to be some level of discernment. Like, oh, we think Hamas is using this, we're going to blow it up, right? So that's my argument, is that it's still indiscriminate bombing. You're saying they use these places. I'm saying that doesn't justify necessarily blowing it up at the time that they blew it up. Was their intelligence good? How do they know that it was there? Because trust me, they're not going to get it right all the time. And when they don't get it right all the time, innocent people die. Let's forward to, because obviously, again, real quick, give your position on the indiscriminate bombing. I want my audience to hear your side, and then we'll do a round war.
Yeah, my argument is very clear that it was fully discriminate bombing, not indiscriminate, because again, if it was indiscriminate, you would see, and this isn't like up for argument, this is just math, this is just statistics, you would see the percentage of death toll be at least relatively close to the percentage of buildings collapsing down, because that will, unless you're very lucky, would kill you and anyone in there. And so the fact that we don't see this statistically, and it's nowhere even kind of close, shows that there was discriminate bombing for sure, as there should be in war. But this indiscriminate bombing is just a nonsensical argument.
But I think it's very important to make a distinguish, because there's a key difference between me and yours arguments. You're not using structure, you're only using deaths. I'm using structure and deaths.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. I don't.
That's fine.
Why should anyone, unless,
yeah,
if we're going to argue concreticide, then fine. You and I agree. It was a concreticide, poor concrete.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it from both structural and people dying, because my argument is a lot of the structures that were destroyed contain resources and things that people need to survive. So I would argue that when you destroy certain structures, you basically are killing people. Well, yeah, they might not die right then and there, but
well, according to you, they should all die because the doctors didn't have any of their equipment. So it's also kind of interesting. I wonder how many people died, not because No, that's what you said, right? You said the doctors could not even have anesthesia or antibiotics or anything. So I wonder how many people died, not even because of necessarily being directly struck, but because maybe they got a cut, an infection, and how many of them died just because of that.
Lots of people died because of infection and malnourishment, and because they don't have food, and they're obviously.
Well, actually, according to Hamas themselves, only like 400 people died the entire 2.5, almost 3 years of war due to malnourishment. And again, not even saying I necessarily even believe Hamas, but even if we go with the worst case scenario with Hamas's numbers, it actually wasn't a lot of people. It was actually a very little amount of people.
Yeah. Like I said before, my argument is you have to put in the structures because the infrastructure plays a role into people's ability to survive. You're saying that doesn't matter. I'm only going off the people that died. Infrastructure doesn't matter to me. Fair. We can agree to disagree on that. At least we got that out there and we have our positions out. Iran war. Okay. What's your position on the Iran war in general? And then you could take it first.
The Iran war? Yeah, I don't trust
that's where we got cut off with Fat Boy.
I don't trust the IRGC at all. I think they're an Islamist terrorist organization. I think Islamist regimes, the world would be better off without them.
Okay.
Anyone that uses Islam really as a theological standpoint, even for that matter. But if they are using it like I believe in it, but that's not particularly what drives them, then whatever. I guess I don't care as much.
Okay. My position is we should have never gotten involved. I think, we were dragged into this conflict. This conflict serves us no strategic benefit. We failed on all of our goals. Our goals originally were to disable their ballistic missile program, to neuter it to, 300 to 400 kilometer range. No uranium enrichment, which is very important. That was that hard line. No uranium enrichment whatsoever. That was the main sticking point. And then obviously no funding of the proxies.
Are they going to get uranium enrichment? Because from my understanding, the original goal was they will not. Where are you getting that from? I mean, by the way, I'm not. Maybe there's something new I didn't read, but where are you getting that from? And also, the original goal of war specifically just said they're not allowed to have a nuclear weapon. After you left, or you dropped, or he kicked you, or whatever, I looked it up. I found the February 28th statement from Pete Hegseth that said no nuclear weapon, not no enrichment. But that being said, you said that Trump did come out and agree that they can have enrichment.
Yeah, it's going to be under. Are you talking about the 14-point plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the 14-point plan, it's going to be they're going to negotiate nuclear after they get the Strait of Hormuz done and everything else like that. But what it looks like, the framework that they're building now is something similar to the JCPOA with IAEA oversight and inspections and everything else like that, and then them diluting the highly enriched uranium that they have now. That's where they're going towards. Right now, Iran does not want to.
I'm asking, where did they say that they're going to get enrichment? Which I don't even agree that was an original goal of war. However, on a personal level, I don't think they should have that either because I don't trust them. And by the way, you and I probably aren't going to have much argument here because even though we disagree with the beginning of the war, I'm very much against this MOU. I miss the America that didn't negotiate with terrorists or capitulate to them. So you and I are probably going to agree this MOU is dog shit, and so is the 60-day negotiations. But I'm just asking you, where did they come out and say that they're going to get enrichment again?
Okay, so the original plan was no enrichment. That was the hardline stance. That's what got us to war because they were like, no, we're going to enrich. It's all right, blah, blah, blah. And then with the MOU, basically they're building a framework to talk about nuclear later, but what some of the discussions are is going to be a limited nuclear program where they're not going to pursue a bomb and they're still going to do enrichment, but at a civilian level.
Where are you getting that from? And also, where did you get that they didn't want enrichment? What Pete Hegseth said, and I quote, was no nuclear weapon. I never heard him say anything. We're getting into war to stop all enrichment.
So the original, which got us into this war, what Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were, because they were the reason why this is confusing is because Witkoff and Kushner kept moving the goalposts when they were doing the negotiations. Okay, it was like a charade. So one day it would be, okay, you guys can enrich, but only 3%. Okay, we agree to that. Next meeting, you know what? No enrichment. They're like, no, we'll go pound sand. And then that's actually how the first 12-day war occurred. So Witkoff and Kushner, and this is why the Iranians don't want to negotiate with them, by the way, anymore. Why do you think J.D. Vance is in Europe? He's there because the Iranians said we're tired of working with Witkoff and Kushner. These guys basically work for Mossad. They do a debrief every time with Mossad. After the fact, they're Zionists. And we know Kushner's passed with Netanyahu. So that is a big reason why J.D. Vance is involved in these talks, is because they kept moving the goalposts. So
yeah, so I'm reading on February 28th. This is from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. This is literally the government website for this, from the Department of War website. It says the mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused: destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I obviously haven't read literally everything, but where are you getting your information from?
Okay, so it's important to know, and this is what I was trying to explain before Fat Boy kicked me off. When they started the war, right? Well, they had a couple of objectives. They wanted the people to rebel. That failed. They crashed the Rial. They thought this elaborate plan was going to work, and it didn't work. But when they originally bombed, right? When it comes to, because you're asking me about the enrichment or about the ballistic missile? Which of the three did you want to
Sure, the enrichment. Where are you getting that they said they were only going to stop all enrichment, not just nuclear weapon? And where are you getting that they are going to get enrichment again?
So Israel wants no enrichment. The United States also agreed with that no enrichment.
Where are you getting that from? What's the source?
The talks, dude. They kept moving the goalposts. I'm telling you, can watch the news. It'll tell you, okay, we're moving for no enrichment. No, they're not gonna have a nuclear bomb. Then it's gonna be no enrichment. They kept playing back and forth. Why do you think the Iranians don't want to negotiate nuclear anymore?
Okay,
they've literally been going back and forth on it the entire time.
I'll look into it, but
yeah, please do. And like I said, the three main things were ballistic missiles, funding the proxies, and then no enrichment. That was the original thing. Now that we have this MOU, they're going to talk about nuclear later on, and they are going to have some level of enrichment with IAEA observation, because the Iranians refused to give up enrichment. But that was a part of the reason why they went to war in the first place, was because they said no enrichment at all. Trump had to soften his stance, obviously, because we lost the war strategically. So he had to concede. Now he's going to let them do it.
I'm reading from 5 days ago. This is on CBS News. This is a quote from Trump that Iran has agreed to no enrichment, and that the IAEA inspections are not to allow enrichment. It's actually to ensure that they don't do that. So again, maybe you have some
lied so many times.
Okay, but
he said that we're going to end the conflict for 40 times.
Dude, I'm with you. I'm with you. Trust
lies.
me. I am not here to try to say I know what the future holds, but there is a difference between you bringing up something that has no sourcing behind it. Now, if your sourcing is just you don't trust Trump and you think that's what's going to happen, fair enough, but we can't debate that because that's just speculation. And maybe you're right, maybe you're not. But you're saying it as if it's a fact.
Okay. I was watching the conflict very closely from the beginning up until where we are now. The reason why the strategies have changed, and they also added in some placeholder ones that they know they're going to be able to get, is because they knew that it was going to be very difficult to get rid of the ballistic missile program, neuter it, no enrichment, and no funding of the proxies. So they added in, we're going to destroy their Air Force, and we're also going to destroy their Navy. Let's be honest here, man.
That was from the very, very beginning. You're saying stuff right now
that got put in. That got put in.
I'm reading it from February 28th. I'm reading it from February 20. After the war started on February 28th. What do you mean?
Yes. After the war began, then they gave that bullshit objective, is what I'm trying to explain to you. But the war did not start because of their Navy or their Air Force. Me and you both know that their Air Force
I'm not saying that. I don't trust. Do you agree that Iran was aiming towards nuclear capability for weapons?
No.
Okay, no, what's the reason for going to 60+% that we could verify? The IAEA said it might be higher in other areas, but let's start with the 60+%. What's the reason?
I'd be happy to answer that. It's because so they can maintain threshold status for deterrence. It's that simple.
Deterrence for what? How does a deterrence work?
That's what nuclear weapons are for. Nuclear weapons.
But you just said they weren't trying to go to a nuclear weapon. How is it a deterrence if you're not going to get a nuclear weapon?
Okay, I said threshold, which means they're in the middle ground where it's like, look, it's like having a gun, right? Like someone's standing at the door, they want to attack you. You got your gun over here, you got your ammunition over here. You put them together, you got a firearm,
but it's not like having a gun because you're effectively saying they don't have it. There's even
they don't have a nuclear weapon.
Right. No. And I'm saying that they were aiming for that very clearly. In fact, there was an Iranian minister. I can try to find his name. He was in the government specifically. He came out and said, of course, we were aiming for a nuclear weapon. That was the whole purpose. Prior to the 2015 IAEA report, I don't know if you read it, but prior to the 2003, they found that Iran, who tried to deny it until the IAEA said, look, we actually have proof. And then they felt very embarrassed, but they tried to deny it. They did neutron inhibitor testing. This was back in 2003, dude. This wasn't even recent. Neutron inhibitor testing, high explosive unit testing. So I'm a nuclear engineer. So I want you to tell me why anyone would do neutron inhibitor testing, 60+% enrichment. They had IR8 and IR9 plus centrifuges. Why would you do all that and build all that and waste the money unless you were absolutely aiming for a nuclear weapon?
Again, it is to have, they are a nuclear threshold state. They understand that getting a nuclear weapon is going to invite an enormous amount of aggression from the United States and Israel. But they also understand that not having that threshold position can also get them attacked anyway.
But so why would that work? Why would that work? Okay.
You sit in the middle,
right,
and then you negotiate that away. That was a negotiating chip by the Iranians, okay, to try to go ahead and get the sanctions relieved. The goal was always to get sanctions relieved, okay, so they can enter back into the world market. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, nah, bro, they were trying to build a nuclear weapon, etc.
Well, no.
Listen, you don't have to take it from me. You don't have to take it from me. You know who you could take it from? You could take it from Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI.
Why would I take it from Tulsi Gabbard when I can take it from the Iranians themselves saying they were aiming for a nuclear weapon?
Because Tulsi Gabbard was the DNI. The DNI has by far the most information on all of the different intelligence collecting agencies in the United States. She oversees
in the United States. I'm going from Iran themselves. I'm using the Iranian government official himself. Why would I take Tulsi Gabbard? I wouldn't even take. First off, General Keegan came out and said that the when it comes to especially Middle Eastern intelligence, the Israelis are worth 5 CIAs. That's General Keegan himself saying that. But I wouldn't even use Israel over the actual primary source itself. Iran, they came out. This minister came out and said, of course, we were aiming for a nuclear weapon. weapon. But you keep saying deterrence. A deterrence doesn't work unless you absolutely are going to go there if it doesn't go your way. I can accept your argument if you're saying that it was going to be a deterrent, but if it didn't go their way, a deterrence doesn't work unless you absolutely follow through. And so for Iran, you didn't answer why they would be doing neutron inhibitor testing. And again, this isn't even something during the JCPOA time or right before it. We're going all the way back to 2003. Of course, they were aiming for a nuclear weapon. The only reason for a civilian reactor, all you need is 3 to 5%. If you want a high-end reactor, 20% max. There's no reason to go to 60%.
Here's the reality. They've mastered the cycle, so they can obviously enrich at a very high level. That's why they're able to get it to 60+%.
It's not hard.
What I'm saying is, yeah, they've mastered the cycle, so they can build a nuclear weapon, but they operate it in that threshold level so that they can use that as a negotiating chip for to get sanctions relief. That was the goal in the first place.
What would they need sanctions? What would they need
sanctions? Let me just
sanctions?
finish real quick, Nick. Let me just finish. If you don't believe me, that's fine. You don't have to believe me. You can go ahead and sit here and say that's a bunch of propaganda. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who oversees all of our intel agencies, who has more information than Donald Trump, because she's the one briefing him, by the way, she said under oath they are not pursuing a nuclear weapon. They don't have a nuclear weapon right now. She said this under oath last year. So I would take what she has to say about that. Joe Kent, same exact thing when he worked under her. So any type of nuclear capabilities they had was to have a negotiating chip to relieve the sanctions. This is why they did the JCPOA in 2015.
So you're misquoting her, actually. So a couple of things. You're misquoting her. So for one, she was talking about after the quote unquote obliteration, which I couldn't stand Trump's hyperbole when he talked about that, but she was talking about post that. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a lie because he should have just said those specific areas were, but not as total. But I agree with you. I think Trump speaks in these very grandiose terms. I don't disagree with that. But regardless, that's not the point. She was talking about post that. But nonetheless, what I'm talking about, right, is that it's very clear, and I'm using Iran as my source themselves. I don't care what Tulsi Gabbard says. I don't care even what Israel says. I'm saying they themselves admitted to this, and they themselves have aimed for that. And a good deterrence only works unless you're actually going to go towards that objective if it doesn't go your way. Now, regardless, and we also...
You want to hear from Tulsi herself? She literally says it, dude.
I mean, play it right now. I watched the entire thing, not just the clip that everyone likes to use. But no, I heard it. You don't have to play it. I've heard it plenty of times. But what I'm saying is that for Iran, right, we know even through our own intelligence as well, that the reason that they were upgrading their ballistic missiles and the quantity of their ballistic missiles was to act as deterrence. So that way they can later start pushing into their nuclear program, because the deterrence was reaching a threshold that would take all of NATO, or sorry, it would outweigh all of NATO's air defense systems, not even just America, all of NATO.
Is this the ballistic shield argument?
I don't know what it's called, but maybe we're talking about the same thing.
I noticed later on in the war, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth kind of shifted, saying they have their ballistic missile program as a shield to protect their nuclear program. Look, the bottom line is this.
Do you disagree with that?
Do I disagree with what?
That they were using their ballistic missiles as a deterrence?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's why they held on to him, and they refused to decrease their.
Oh, the way you made it sound was like as if Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth was lying, but you do agree with them.
No, I do, but like they were saying that to justify the conflict is why it was so ridiculous, because it's like we shouldn't even be here in the first place. Those ballistic missiles are not a threat to us; they're a threat to our they're a threat to our enemies. Yes, we have military bases in the region. You can make that argument, but again, Iranians told the United States and Israel, if you attack us, we are going to consider one attack as an attack from both, and we are going to attack all your base in the region. We're going to hit Israel back, and this is why we got dragged into it, because Marco Rubio knew that the Israelis were going to attack no matter what, and that would have led to us being attacked. So it's a fact that we got dragged into this conflict, man. And it's an out.
Do you agree that Iran? Let's get past this. We're going in circles. Do you agree with Iran being a push for Russian and Chinese influence in the region?
Obviously, they have a strategic partnership with China that they signed a couple of years ago.
Do you find that dangerous, and do you think we as America should... Well, I don't know your position. Are you like an isolationist, or do you think we should absolutely push back on influence from China and Russia? I'm not really sure what your position is.
So I don't like intervention. I think it creates a lot of problems. And I see what you're saying. Well, look, it's better that we have influence in that area than they do. Well, here's the thing. This war has absolutely shot ourselves in the foot, because the way the United, and you know this from being in the military, like we project our power by having, bases all over the place, aircraft carriers, we could be anywhere in the world within 24 hours, have military dominance all over the place. This conflict showed that the United States is a paper tiger and cannot protect their allies. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, all these different countries.
Due to capitulation. We absolutely could if Trump, and this is why I'm against this MOU, is because we are capitulating.
My thing is we shouldn't even have been there in the first place because it exposed a lot of our weaknesses, okay? And we were not able to defend our allies, defend our bases, and we lost billions of dollars of infrastructure completely destroyed that we didn't need to. And the scariest part about this, because you're talking about influence, I actually have a big problem with China. I don't get to talk about China enough, but I do think if we're going to go ahead and pursue China, right, who's a very competent adversary,
right.
We're going to have to stop messing around in the Middle East. And what we just effectively did
It's the opposite. It's the opposite. The Middle East, it's the opposite. The Middle East is always going to be a very hot zone of people wanting to spread their influence. If we leave the Middle East, China will go through that area, and their influence and their being a good adversary will triple overnight if we allow them to do that. And on top of that, you're missing one thing that we are gaining from this war that no one's talking about on either side for that matter. We have now actually made a lot of deals behind the scenes, and I think there's more to it. And I think that's, maybe I'm coping a little bit, but I think maybe that's why we're seeing some capitulation is because maybe, and listen, I voted for Trump. I voted for him 3 times. I'm a conservative, but I don't deify the guy. I have no problem saying you're being a bitch right now and this is stupid and I don't agree. And you and I don't agree with the war, but I think both of us don't like the MOU. Maybe not. I don't know. Whatever. Point is that there is
the MOU was inevitable. I knew it was going to come. Like once we started the war and I saw that
it doesn't have to.
I knew that was coming.
It doesn't have to. He's caving because of other shit. Honestly, I think it's because of creators like you, and unfortunately Trump has this thing about needing to be liked, which is an awful quality in a leader. And I think because he's seeing a lot of stuff, I don't think social media is real life, but it's perceived to be real life. And I think because he's seeing a lot of this, he is absolutely caving and capitulating. But let's assume there's a small percentage chance that there's something going on more in the background. One thing I do know that has been going on in the background that no one's talking about, and you should look into it, is we have actually secured a lot of energy lanes indefinitely in our favor all the way to the Straits of Malacca. And we have to remember, if we're talking about China, the Straits of Hormuz is hardly a thing for China. 80% plus of China's foreign oil actually comes from the Straits of Malacca, not the Straits of Hormuz. For us, most of our foreign oil comes from actually Canada. So honestly, when we actually look at this, and if we are able to secure that, as it seems like we have, and we have indefinitely secured it through partnership and energy lane shifts, that's going to be something that will change my mind a lot, although I still think Trump is capitulating a lot, but it will change my mind a lot once I see that that's actually a secure thing. And that's something nobody's talking about on your side or my side, those that are for or against the war.
I've discussed it, that the energy distribution is kind of like a thing that's coming alongside of it. But again, but at what cost, right? Because here's the thing when it comes to this whole, because I knew when we got into this conflict and they shut down the Strait of Hormuz, I was like, yeah, we can't maintain this forever. It's very easy for them to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They just shoot drones at boats. No one wants to insure it. It's over. Like, we're going to have to capitulate to some degree because the international market is suffering. Our allies in the East are suffering. And my thing is this, because you mentioned Chinese influence. Well, here's what's going to happen. If this MOU goes all the way and we actually do pull our troops out of the area, because that's a part of the MOU, is like we move our military presence out of the area around Iran. That's part of the 14-point plan.
Dude, have you read the 14-point plan?
Go look at it, dude. Look at it. It's a part of it is withdrawing troops. Now, they weren't explicitly explicit about how and which bases we're going to clear out, but that was a part of the MOU, was we are going to withdraw troops around Iran. Why is this a problem? Well, remember the Chinese influence you talked about? Well, that creates a gap for both China and Russia to come in. So these Gulf states, right? Why are they going to go ahead and get American protection, knowing that they can get attacked?
I just don't think you're right. I don't.
Look it up.
I'm looking at it right now. I think maybe you read the terms: declare the immediate and permanent termination of military operation on all fronts, including in Lebanon, and undertake from now on.
There's also withdrawing out of the moving troops out of the region, man.
Any military operation against each other. If you can just tell me which of the 14, you might be right, actually.
I don't remember the exact number, but it's in there.
Are you saying, wait, maybe I'm misunderstanding you, because the way you're making it sound is like they're withdrawing like all of their troops. Is that true?
No.
And what does around Iran mean? What does that even mean?
Well, that's what I was telling you. It's not explicit. It's not clearly defined. But what I think is more than likely going to happen is this is going to mean the withdrawal of our troops to some degree out of the region, out of the Gulf states, because that was Iran's
Oh,
biggest issue.
I know what you're reading. You're reading, yes, the United States undertakes to withdraw its forces from the surrounding areas within 30 days after the final agreement.
Lying, man.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say you're lying. You're misunderstanding what that's saying, because I looked into that. That's not talking about withdrawing its troops from some of the bases that it is. It's talking about for the purposes of specifically the war, like the ships that are right outside the strait. They're talking about that stuff. They're not talking. Yeah, but you made it sound like you were talking about like the troops that are kind of already over there from before. I don't think it's talking about that, dude.
Here's the thing. They purposely wrote it ambiguously like that so that they can cover themselves. But it does absolutely entail, because again, I've been following this MOU for a while. They've had different drafts and different revisions on it. So first it was, we wanted them all out of the area, all out of the region. We don't want them in the military bases. Obviously, the United States is not going to concede to that. That looks horrible. So what they are going to do instead, more than likely, is lower the presence in the region to a degree, because remember, this is Iran's biggest issue. That's why they attacked the Gulf states in the first place. They attacked other Muslim countries because there's American bases that were utilized to attack them. That's why they relentlessly hit a lot of these places. The UAE got hit like 2,000 times.
Yeah, they hit these other places because they got fucked up and they didn't have the ability to do much else. That's why they hit these other places.
It doesn't matter. Asymmetric warfare, they conducted it perfectly, and it created the pinch that we needed, and that's why we have this horrible MOU. I know that you don't like hearing that, but the reality is
we have this.
They're able to create an enormous amount of pressure on the Gulf states. And what's going to more than likely have to happen is we are going to have to pull troops from the region. Am I saying every single base is going to be shut down? No, but we're definitely we're never going to have the same presence in the Gulf after this. And this opens up opportunities for China, for Russia to potentially come in and have some more influence. Because China is a safe bet, because China is making,
so a couple things. One, if anything, you should be happy about that. So I don't even know why you're against that. But two, again, the way you made it sound.
I don't like China moving in.
Okay, fair enough. But okay, again, maybe it's just the way you made it sound. You made it sound different. So sure, maybe that's true. I guess we'll find out more, and neither of us know exactly what that means. We'll find out more after. So we'll put a pin in that. But as for why we're losing in this MOU, see, the only thing I reject, because a lot of you are saying, and what I'm saying kind of is slightly in agreement, so I don't really know how much more we can even argue about this, but like the one thing I disagree is it has to be that way. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be that way. And again, I don't know what's happening in the background. Maybe there's more to it, but let's just answer at face value. Let's assume Trump really is just scared and he wants to just find the first off-ramp, even if it means not gaining at least at bare minimum, the official goals of war that the United States, which is all that's important to me. Again, I don't give a shit what Israel.
Any of them.
Right, and that's, I don't agree about the nuclear thing, but whatever. Let's put that aside for a second. I don't give a shit about
what. You don't agree that they didn't want zero enrichment, or?
Well, I still haven't been able to find that. I tried to find it. I don't know where you're getting that from. I'm just going to assume maybe that's true. And I also didn't find anywhere where he said enrichment's allowed. In fact, Trump said the opposite, and your only answer to that was he's lying. And maybe you're right. Maybe he is lying, but that's not a good argument.
He's been changing his story on enrichment depending on what the political.
Can you give me something from the last 3 days ago?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's not from 3 days ago. It was earlier in the conflict. It was before the war. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It was before the war. Then they shifted and said, no.
Okay, you keep saying that, but I couldn't find that. And again, can I find every single article ever in history? No. So maybe it exists, but I couldn't find that anywhere. And I looked at a lot of things. Everything was pretty consistent about it. But nonetheless, regardless, I'm going to finish. So what I'm saying is that this idea that it has to happen, no, the fuck it doesn't. He is definitely, again, answering at face value. Let's assume there's no fucking weird thing happening on the side. I think it's possible that the deal will actually just fall apart, honestly, but let's just assume it doesn't. No, it doesn't absolutely. No, again, we 100% disagree with that, but let's move past that for a second. And
we're messing up the MOU right now?
We can get to that in a second, and I will be more than glad to explain it like I did during part one. But nonetheless, what I'm saying is that I don't think Iran is actually in good faith at all. And so it's possible that they will actually be the ones to bust the deal. But let's assume the deal goes through and the 60-day negotiations, we have full sanction relief. What is it? $25 billion. And even before we get to the 60-day negotiations that they're going to unfreeze. We don't have to do that. I don't agree. You're acting like, we're stuck and we knew this was going to happen and it has to come about. But no, it doesn't. It does not have to. We spend damn near fucking $1 trillion on a Department of War. We actually have the capability, even without Israel.
You're not a fan of ending
it? I'm not a fan of ending it incorrectly, especially when we did have 13 U.S. brothers. I was in the U.S. military for almost 12 years that died. I'm not against ending a conflict. I'm not against that. In fact, I'd rather there not be war, honestly. I'm against ending it incorrectly, and we absolutely are ending this again, taking things at face value. What should we continue to do?
Yeah, what should have we? Yeah,
it's very simple. We are big.
You don't like the MOU. I get it. I already saw it as a foregone conclusion. I called it from a month ago that we're going to have to capitulate. I just was waiting for when it would happen. But what do you suggest that we do?
Yeah, first off, we shouldn't have done this whole like 2-month ceasefire. I'm okay with taking a ceasefire with a general understanding, but like you said earlier during part 1 of this debate, we're Big Daddy. We should absolutely tell them what they should be doing. This idea that you keep saying, like, for example, Israel is causing the MOU to get all fucked up. It's ironic that you put more pressure and that idea on Israel for responding to Iran, but not Iran, who has been launching into Israel daily the entire ceasefire.
You mean Hezbollah?
Like I said, Iran.
Okay.
Just because you let me get this straight. Okay, let me ask you something real quick, because I love when, I'm not saying you're necessarily doing that, but I love when pro-Palestinians do that. Well, it wasn't Iran, it was Hezbollah. Okay, if Israel were to withdraw from Lebanon and they replace their soldiers with a group that was funded and weaponized by Israel, but it wasn't literally the IDF, would you be okay with that? Be honest.
I already told you that I understand your perspective that they're the same. The answer to Ali Khamenei.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the whole reason why Hezbollah even got in the war was because they killed Ali Khamenei.
So you agree that Iran has been launching every single day?
Bro. I'm not a free Palestine moron. Like I'm very impartial when it comes to this. Like my thing is I look at it like this is a strategic loss. So so I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, no, not really. No, absolutely, they're a proxy. They are.
Okay, so you agree that Iran has been launching. So you agree Iran has been violating the ceasefire just every single day. Maybe there's some days you can find there were breaks, but pretty much every single day for this 2 months that they have been doing this quote unquote ceasefire.
Let's be fair. The ceasefire that you're talking about was broken in 2024 after the murder, after they killed.
I'm just talking about contemporary times.
Yeah, but there was a ceasefire. Which ceasefire are you putting?
I'm talking about when Trump came in and said, all right, we're going to stop bombing with Iran. Iran, you guys stop bombing us and our allies. Yes, this most recent ceasefire. Okay. Iran has been violating it every single day via proxies and sometimes IRGC directly.
Okay. For purposes of just so I make sure I understand, because I know what you're trying to do. You're saying they're the same. Fair.
They are the same.
Just so I understand. Fair, but like just so I can specifically respond. Here's the thing. Israel invaded Lebanon in early March after they killed Ali Khamenei. So what ended up happening was they're in a war. So both parties have been shooting rockets at each other and fighting. So
the Lebanese government has come out and said that they put 100% of the blame on Hezbollah. The Lebanese government came out and said, we don't want people negotiating for our country. We want Hezbollah out. They're not necessarily perfectly aligned with Israel, but
get them out.
Okay, but regardless,
wildly popular in Lebanon. They can't get
okay, my point is that if the Lebanese government has been saying that even since the most recent times, they've been saying it's not Israel, it's actually Hezbollah. They've been saying that they have been working with Israel to rid the area of Hezbollah. So you don't get to say, nor does Iran get to say, well, Israel, they went into Lebanon. The Lebanese government, if they had a problem with it, let them say it. Not Iran, not the IRGC, not Hezbollah, a proxy group. Let them say it. You guys don't, and when I say you guys, I mean the IRGC or whatever. The IRGC doesn't get to come out and make dictations on another country that's not fucking theirs. And it's not Hezbollah's either. It's the Lebanese government who's came out and they disagree with everything you're saying right now.
Fair. No. I'm not saying that they do agree with me, but what I'm saying is that, let's be honest, let's be very blunt here. The Lebanese government is cocked. Their military is cocked. Hezbollah has far more support and respect over the Lebanese government. This is why they can't get them.
They're like number 3, bro. They're not. They don't.
Hassan Nasrallah was loved all across Lebanon, right? They look at him like, oh, he's a resistance fighter, whatever. Again, I'm just telling you what.
Dude, they're number 3. They're number 3 in the government. They're not like super low, but they're definitely not that. And by the way, that was before people started hating on them recently. They were number 3 before.
What I'm simply arguing is that they have an enormous amount of support, which is why the Lebanese government cannot disarm them and they can't actually really do anything to them. I mean, hell, even the general for the Lebanese army, they were trying to get him to oppose Hezbollah and he refused to do it. It's political suicide. Now, we can have a discussion on what they should do or whatever. I'm just saying why it's not happening in Lebanon.
I just want to say one thing just real quick. I agree, kind of. I think the numbers aren't fully there, but I agree with you. They are very popular. But regardless, that doesn't matter. My point was to say that the IRGC doesn't get to come in and say, because that's what your argument was, well, Israel invaded Lebanon. That's not a real argument because they don't get to come in and say any of that shit because it doesn't fucking matter, regardless of how. I agree with you for the context that they're very popular, but that doesn't matter.
It's two things. It's the assassination of Ali Khamenei. That's what really drew them in. And then when they got involved in the conflict, because remember, there was a ceasefire with them from 2024. and then that, which, you know, both parties violated it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, Israel violated 10,000 times. The Lebanese violated it. The Hezbollah violated it too. Both of them did. But regardless, there was a ceasefire. They killed Ali Khamenei. They warned that if you kill the supreme leader, we're going to get involved in this conflict. They got involved in the conflict. Then Israel retaliated by invading Lebanon.
Makes sense.
Now they've taken up until the Litani River. I know that right now, as we speak, they're fighting very hard over the Crusader Castle. Right, they're trying to get that vantage point from a strategic standpoint, and this is why Netanyahu refuses to stop the conflict. What I'm arguing is, it is this conflict that's holding up the MOU, because the United States can deliver on almost everything else in that 14-point plan, but the stopping of the conflict in Lebanon is based on the Israelis. And this is where I'm saying, because you made the argument earlier, which I agree with you, the United States does have opportunities, and they have been able to stop Israelis from doing certain things at times. However, now, right, we have an example where the United States can't do it. The Israelis are probably not going to withdraw back to Israel. They're going to keep the land that they have. They're going to try to.
Nor should they. My whole point is that I follow values, not people.
I'm not arguing if they should or could. I'm just saying why the MOU is going to fail and why Israel does not listen to us, even though they should be listening to us.
I hope because it's going to be better for America, and I am America first. I am America first because of values, not because of people. I don't care how many times I voted for Trump. If he's not following the values I think will be best for America, of course I follow values.
Southern Lebanon, how is occupying southern Lebanon America first?
Sure. When you say this MOU, which we both agree is kind of dog shit, do you think, because you said America can provide, I think you said most of those 14 points. Should America provide most of those 14 points? I assume you hated Obama. Is that a fair? I don't know if you've been a.
No, actually, no. I think the JCPOA was a good deal. I'm not like a. I'm very like I'm able to be impartial. Like if they did something good, I'll say it. Like
you think providing pallets of cash, before we even get into this MOU, you think providing pallets of cash,
more money, bro.
You think no, I agree. So then you agree that
like,
both suck.
Give me even more.
So you're literally proving my point. That means both suck. But let's put Trump's deal aside for a second, because you said you actually agreed with Obama's deal. You agreed with the sunset clauses. You agreed with the pallets of cash, sanction relief. You agreed with all that, really?
The sunset clause, the weak point. And actually, interesting point. I'm glad that you said that. Did you know that on February 27th, when they were in Oman doing the negotiations before the first strike hit, that they had a framework deal that would have removed stockpiling and sunset clauses, and the Iranians agreed to that framework, but they bombed them anyway the day after?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can look into that, but regardless, my whole point.
He went on American media to say it, by the way.
Wait, what year is this?
So Trump had something better than the JCPOA. This was on February 27th. He went on CBS News. He talked about the deal. He talked about the framework. It was obviously, it's the beginnings, but it was a pretty damn good deal that would have been better than the JCPOA, which would have gotten Trump what he needed. But yes, when it comes to Obama, like, I don't like the woke stuff that he did. Obviously, he brought in a bunch of these issues like with BLM and, gay marriage, all this other stuff that I oppose. But when it comes to JCPOA, I think it was a practical move based on the time.
There was multiple violations. There was multiple violations of the JCPOA even before Trump. Now, they weren't as serious as violations, to be honest, as some of my side pretends it is, but there was multiple violations. You can look into it because, again, you should not be making deals with terrorist regimes who are there in bad faith. That's the whole fucking point.
We pulled out.
No. This was before he pulled out. This was before that. There was multiple violations, but nonetheless, the JCPOA is awful. Even if you don't even care about like the enrichment and the fact that
was the Israel lobby that killed the JCPOA, but that's another conversation.
The JCPOA was awful, and you're right. This MOU is also awful. So back to my original question: when you say America can provide this stuff in the MOU, the question is: should we provide this stuff? Should we have full-on sanction relief? Should we be giving them $24 billion in unfrozen funds? Exactly. So I hope, whatever the case might be, no, we didn't. We don't have to be in this position. We don't have to be. We should go to them and say, this.
What should we do? What
sure.
Should we do?
We should go to the negotiation table. And of course, negotiations means you have to somewhat give some stuff. For sure. But that doesn't mean full sanction relief, $24 billion, and all the other bullshit that's in there. We should go in. We clearly did a massive amount of damage on them. They're asking for $300 billion from, I think, what's supposed to become from the Gulf states. That's not up for argument.
Yeah, in Asia.
Right. And so we know that this shit caused a lot of damage. The one thing that they really, really do have, and I'll agree, is the Strait of Hormuz. And that's a different story for a different day. Let's put a pin in that for a second. But we should be going in there and saying, no, we are going to get at bare minimum the minimum what we asked for. If we have to capitulate other stuff, or if then maybe there's some gradual sanction relief from there, fine, I'd accept that. Do I want it? No. What I'd like to see is the IRGC to fuck off and these Islamist regimes to fuck off back where they came from.
How much more time would have you had to make this deal happen then? Because you said you would have just continued the war. How would you go about doing that? What would have you done escalation wise militarily?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that there was a lot of things we held back on because we had this idea, because you kind of mentioned it earlier, that we had this idea that maybe the regime will fall. We shouldn't have went into the war with even a back thought of that. We should have started destroying things, because there's some things that there weren't destroyed because Pahlavi came out and was like, please don't destroy these things because when the regime falls, we can use it. Fuck that. They should have destroyed that shit fucking too. They should have absolutely targeted the heads of the strategic areas that affects the IRGC right at their heart. That's absolutely what we should have done. Because either there's three options you can do with Iran. You can not do anything, never ever ever gone into war with them, and that's where you stand. You could go in and finish it correctly, or you can go in and half-ass it. The worst of those three options is actually the third one. It would have actually been better.
Because I know you want to do number 2 with the finish it correctly. How would you go about doing that? What would
I told you? You should have absolutely have gone in and struck the areas that we know with. Okay, we don't know because it's not like Trump admitted it.
What are you going to target? I want you to be extremely specific. What would you target? How would you go about it? Are we talking?
Well, it's asking me.
Are we talking airstrikes?
No, I mean the most with the first thing, maybe Karg Island, but no, I'm not even arguing that. I don't even know why people were so afraid of that. We don't fight wars like the way we fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not even like if Trump were to try to fight the war the same way like that, even I'd come out and be like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is like 20-year-old type warfare." No, so I'm not arguing that at all.
How would you do it?
But I'm saying the areas. Well, first off, we have to. Just to be fair to my argument, we have to understand that the Pentagon's going to know more than me. I'm saying use the strategy, but what I do know is that we were purposely not targeting certain things.
Knows more too.
Yeah, more than Iran? No, of course not.
Said they didn't have nukes.
So no. So what Tulsi Gabbard said was post the strike that they were not currently aiming for that, and that might have been true after we struck them during Operation Midnight Hammer. So the problem is you're using what Tulsi Gabbard said as an end all be all. I'm saying she was correct for that time period, or maybe correct, but again, for the end all be all and the general information, I'm going with Iran themselves. Again, there was a minister of the IRGC himself that came out and said, of course, we were aiming for a nuclear weapon. So unless you think he's lying, of course, I'm going to take him over anyone, including Israel or America, because he's the actual fucking guy. Anyways, back to what I was saying, right? Is that what I'm saying is you're asking me like specifically what areas. I'm saying the Pentagon can understand that information, but we should have struck at the heart of the IRGC, things that we were afraid to strike because we had this kind of back end thought that, well, if the Iranian people do rise up and take back their country, we want them to be able to have these facilities. I say fuck that. You should have absolutely struck at the heart of the IRGC, and then if something like that were to happen, build it later or something.
So real quick, Nick, she actually said that in March of 2025. So this was before the 6-day war, the 12-day war. So she was saying this before we bombed them, and we still bombed them on Midnight Hammer.
Okay, so, if you're going, okay, hold on. If you're going with that one, actually, she was going off of the IAEA report, but the IAEA report also said specifically that that's only the areas that they were able to inspect, and the IAEA even admitted that they expected that Iran was doing some nefarious things in areas that they couldn't inspect. So yes, sure, I agree with you. I thought you were going with the most recent one. Yes, I agree with that one. That one's even worse for your argument because that goes off the assumption. Well, it goes off the assumption that we knew that there's some areas that were not inspected, which I have to ask you, why would Iran be so scared of certain areas being inspected if they were already open to doing inspections? Why cut off those areas by your logic?
Again, so you want to stay strategic, like
strategic for what?
Strategic ambiguity.
Okay,
Israel
for what?
Does that same thing.
Does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not a good argument then.
No. But here's the thing I'm trying to point here. Israel runs strategic ambiguity. Okay, it's not confirm or deny. Okay.
You understand? You just made my point for me. Why would they want to run? Why would they allow for some inspections and not none? And you compared it to Israel's ambiguity, but that doesn't help you because we know Israel does actually have those.
Yes, we know, right? Because they stole everything from us. But what I'm trying to make the point here, and the reason why they do that, by the way, the strategic ambiguity, is because they know that they wouldn't be able to get aid because they run a completely,
I'm asking why did Iran not allow for inspections in certain areas? Why? If they were already open for inspections and allowing the IAEA in, why say, okay, you can go there, but don't go behind this door, please?
Why comply with them when we pulled out of the JCPOA?
No, this was during the JCPOA. Dude, this was during.
No, we pulled out in 2018. What are you talking about, dude?
I'm saying the IAEA even admitted. The IAEA even admitted during the JCPOA, and on top of that, the JCPOA, and this is another fault of the JCPOA, it allowed them, and in fact, it required the IAEA to warn Iran. I think it was maybe it was 2 weeks, but let's go with 1 week for best case scenario. They had to warn Iran, excuse me, they had to warn Iran that they were coming, and they had a whole entire 1 to 2 weeks to prepare. So again, why would they? One, they had time to prepare, so of course they can just fucking hide stuff and be like, yeah, come on in. And two, why would they refuse them to allow them to inspect certain areas, which the IAEA specifically said they kind of expect that there's something going on there?
Now, here's the other thing too. Like your entire argument rests upon you're assuming that she only relied upon the IAEA report to come to that conclusion. Dude, she's gonna have other. She's the DNI. She's gonna have other materials that she's relying upon in her testimony to say what she said. You're just using the IAEA. So that's the fact that she said, look,
they're the only ones that did the inspection, dude. They were there on the ground. I mean, that's a pretty big.
We have spies there. We have people that are collecting information. We have nuclear scientists that work for us. The CIA, there's a reason why they don't disclose their budget. There's spies all over the place. She's relying upon way more than just
this
the
is
IAEA
speculation.
report. If you think it's just common sense, bro.
It's speculation.
She's the DNI. You think she's not going to rely on other pieces of information to be able to make that decision?
Do you agree? I know you don't like Israel, but do you agree that Israel is going to also have that exact same stuff for their intelligence?
What do you mean?
All the stuff you're saying, don't you agree? Especially for the region, Israel's going to have that even more than us? Dude, General Keegan specifically said that they're, especially in the region, their intelligence is worth 5 CIAs.
He's going to say that because he's a Zionist, and that's a talking point that Zionists give.
Okay, you can't just ignore everything just because.
Bro, the Israelis, right, will sit there and say, we kill terrorists, we give intel, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you create a lot of the problems. So it's like, okay, great. Like, you're somewhat fixing the problem that you created. Like, great. Like, that's a common Zionist talking point to justify the foreign aid and support that we give them. But in reality, we shouldn't be involved in a lot of this crap in the first place where the intelligence would even be useful. But anyway, look, that's neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is that Tulsi Gabbard said that they're not pursuing a nuclear weapon, and she said this before we bombed them in June, and we still bombed them. So we eradicated it. Then she said they didn't have them, and honestly, if they did have them, they would have used them. Now, going back to the whole situation with Iran, we were discussing before that.
I just don't know really, because you and I we disagree obviously on some stuff, but the reason we haven't gotten anywhere is because we don't fully. You already asked that. I told you, but. My point is,
you didn't go into detail about what you would do militarily. Like you said,
I told you, we should have hit to the heart of what would affect their economy and not have worried about, well, what happens if the regime does or doesn't fall. I already went into this, but the reason you and I are not, the reason part one was a much better debate than this one is because you and I kind of sort of agree with some premises with the Iran war. We don't agree with the start, and we have some things we agree with about what we don't agree with at the MOU. But other than that, the reason we're not getting anywhere, and that's the reason this has been a much more boring conversation, honestly, is because we already kind of agree on some of these things. We just don't agree on certain premises of the start and the now.
This is where I disagree with you on this. And guys, get off. I'm going to get off YouTube, guys. Come on over to Kick. I'm dropping the Kick link for you guys. I'm getting off YouTube. So I'm going to end the YouTube stream, guys. Coming over to Kick. Kick.com/MyronGainsX. So come on over now. The thing that I disagree with you on is, like, you're saying, like, I would have, you would have went harder on Iran by hitting more targets. My argument to that is, like, that would not have helped, and that would have massively backfired. And I'll tell you why. Trump already exhausted all of his military options. He had no more military options left. That's why he had to go into this MOU.
We didn't do Operation Freedom and Karg Island. We didn't.
He gave up on that because, we're going to blockade the blockade. That's foolish. And then the other thing, too, when it comes to, like, escalating militarily, the only thing he had left was two things. Either A, start bombing power plants and infrastructure and desalination plants, or use a nuclear bomb. And if he had done that, that would have sealed the fate of all the Gulf states. Because
I'm not talking about a nuclear bomb, but they absolutely should have started striking some of the desalination stuff.
Because you're saying military escalation. I'm telling you there was no military escalation left. Like, he only had infrastructure points, key infrastructure points, and if he had hit those, Iran would have absolutely destroyed the Gulf. All of our allies, desalination plants, cooked, done. It would have been a catastrophe. 50 to 70 million people, I think, live in that region. If they don't have drinking water, it's done, especially in the summertime. That is why Trump had to capitulate. So he had no more options militarily, dude. There was nothing else that he could do.
Yeah, I disagree. He could have absolutely went into, I agree, even if you say not specifically desalination plants, they could have went in with Karg Island. The blockade actually was smart. I don't agree with, that's actually one of the things that he did was pretty smart, and it actually was pretty effective. I'm not going to say it was perfect, neither is nothing, but
ships still got through.
Yeah, very, very little. How many ships got through compared to what it was before?
Dozens.
Do you know how many was before? It was way more.
Well, that's $2 million a pop, though. That's $2 million a pop each time. Because they were charging a toll.
Okay,
Iran was charging a toll.
first off, I don't even know where you're getting dozens from, but still 2 million a pop is significantly less. Even if we did assume dozens, that is significantly less than what it was before. It's not even close. And so so what you're saying is it was foolish because you're saying it wasn't 100% effective. And by the way, you're using IRGC talking points. We don't even know if the IRGC is correct or not. But regardless, like
what IRGC talking point did I use?
You said that dozens got through and they were charging 2 million.
Dude, American media admitted that some did get through. Like,
no, I agree. Some did, but I'm saying it was significantly less. So if something was effective, but not 100%, then why would you call it foolish? It wasn't foolish. It was actually pretty smart. But
it's basically putting a Band-Aid on a leaky faucet that's not.
That's not a band. Again, it would be a Band-Aid.
It's a temporary solution to a much bigger problem.
It would be
the issue. Okay. The issue was the Strait of Hormuz was closed. That was the issue. Us doing a blockade on the blockade. Okay, we hurt their ability to make some money. Oh well, like they still.
It wasn't, dude.
Because they have the Strait of Hormuz closed.
It wasn't just the money. In fact, on top of that, they did, but we don't know for sure. They had to start capping oil wells because they were starting to use old ass barrels that were leaking, and they were starting to use like storage tanks that they didn't use in years just so they can store. And I don't know if you know this, but when you cap an oil well, you can't just uncap it and start pumping later. It's permanently sealed. And so, no, it was actually very intelligent, and it actually affected them indefinitely. So what we should be doing is we should
why don't you
not
just continue the blockade if it was so genius then.
Well, that's my point, is we shouldn't be capitulating. We should actually continue. Yes. Will the world's economy be affected? Yes, I agree with that. In fact, it was actually good for us in some ways, because a lot of
you were paying double for gas. And also, keep in mind, you want to know another reason you had to capitulate?
Okay.
The strategic reserves we were literally about to run out of them.
Dude, what are you talking about? How much oil do you think we get from the Strait of Hormuz? Where do you think most of our foreign oil comes from?
Not the United States. Most of our, I know that we only get maybe 10% of our oil from the Strait of Hormuz. I know that it does not affect us that much. But what I am saying is that the price of Brent crude went up significantly during the blockage. And then on top of that, the strategic reserves were running low for the world. I think they had released 400 million.
Oh, when you say we, you don't mean United States. You mean we as in the...
I meant the world. I meant
okay, anyways, I'm going back to... Okay, I thought you were talking about United States. I'm going back to what I was saying then.
So he had to make this happen.
No, he doesn't have to.
He would have had an energy crisis.
Yeah, he doesn't have to. But regardless... What I'm saying is that there's many things we could have done. If the world actually gave a shit, then they should have actually, our quote-unquote allies, the only allies that were actually being capable in this war was Israel. They were very capable allies, and other allies who are bringing in a bunch of fucking Islamist refugees and a bunch of leftist woke-ass politicians who are spreading gay this and gay that and Islam this and Islam that.
I think they're horrible allies, and I'll tell you why.
Agreed. You and I agree.
Netanyahu put the idea in Trump's head that this would be a quick victory. He'd be able to get the Iranians to capitulate.
You're speculating. You have no proof of that whatsoever.
Okay, actually I do.
Go ahead.
When Netanyahu came to the United States back in February, and he did it, he went around the back. He didn't even go around the front. They didn't have a press conference, etc. They were scheduled for a 1-hour meeting. Ended up going about 3 hours or so. And during that meeting, Netanyahu presented 2 different strike plans. He presented a plan with they are striking by themselves, and then one with the United States. But the bottom line is that they were going to attack no matter what. This is what put us in a bad situation. And Netanyahu and the Mossad, because I think he called them.
I thought you just said, hold on real quick. I thought you said that we only went into the war because Israel struck. And now you just said that Netanyahu offered a plan without America joining the war. You just debunked your earlier self. You just said that Netanyahu said, hey, we can do this actually without you guys. Here's a plan for it. But earlier you said the only reason we got into the war as the United States was because Israel struck. But you just said Israel offered a plan without without having to bring America in.
Yes, but here's the thing. They offered the plan knowing that if they attack, we're going to get attacked anyway.
Right. Okay? Where are you getting? Okay, perfect.
It's almost like a give me.
Right. Can you give me the source that says that Netanyahu offered these 2 plans and he specifically did it knowing that?
I can. This was reported, I think, by New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and I think PBS had a whole documentary on it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is simply this.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, because I'm actually aware. I'm actually aware of this. This is based off of an anonymous source, and on top of that, even that anonymous source didn't say shit about, oh, he only did it because he knew that they couldn't accept the first plan. Like, you're just making all that part up.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, of course they're going to present a plan with us and then without us, and then they entice Trump, hey, jump in, it's going to be a quick victory, we kill all
you don't know that. You don't know he said that.
That's literally what he told him. That's literally what he told them. Several sources have confirmed this. This is because Trump thought he was going to get another Venezuela, 96 hours, in and out, will destroy the head of the snake, and then they will not be able to actually shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That was their goal, in and out. And Netanyahu and the Israeli intelligence convinced him, even though American intelligence told Trump not to do it. And they also told him there's a very low likelihood that you will be able to effectuate regime change if you kill Ali Khamenei based on the way that their government is structured and the fact that it's a theocracy and they have a martyrdom culture, etc. 15 different intelligence agencies told Donald Trump this a week before he attacked on February 28th. He basically ignored his intelligence apparatus and listened to the Mossad and put us in the quagmire that we're in. This is a fact. And this got reported, I think, by the Wall Street Journal the first week of March, that they gave him this intel report before he struck, and he still struck. This is all a fact, dude. Like, and then Marco Rubio admitted and conceded, yeah, we got involved because we knew that the Israelis were going to attack, and that would lead to us being attacked back because they said this. So that's how they dragged us into the war. Of course, Netanyahu's going to have a backup plan in case the United States doesn't get involved. But he knew more than likely we were going to get involved because we were going to get attacked no matter what. So they dragged us into the war. I don't know how much clearer I have to be. But yes, this has been reported by several different people. Netanyahu came to the United States 13 different times in a year.
Yeah,
that's plan to kill Ali Khamenei. I think in November of 2025. They wanted to originally kill him in November of 2025. But their plan was very risky. They've been planning this forever to go after and kill this guy. They had they wanted to put boots on the ground and do a special operation. They had all these crazy plans. That's what got Mike Waltz fired. What got Mike Waltz fired was that he was pitching going to war with the Iranians over and over and over again, doing secret meetings with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
That's why
Listen,
he got kicked out, director of
I agree with all this, and this is just Gish Gallup. I do not give a shit about what something says in the mainstream media. I don't fucking trust that. And yes, I'm
Only
reading.
when you agree with it.
No, actually, no. I use primary sources. I've been saying that since the very, very beginning. I've been saying that since the start when we were on the other live debating. I've been saying that since the very beginning. I don't give a shit if it's Times of Israel or fucking Al Jazeera.
What am I wrong about then?
Yeah, I'm reading about it right now. Like I said, and I was correct. This is all just according to just some anonymous sources. And yeah, you can say, hey, maybe those anonymous sources are right. Maybe they're not. Honestly, the right answer is probably that it's somewhere in between, because that's generally how it works, right? Generally, it's, kind of true, kind of not. But I don't really give a shit about that because the rest is just speculation. I have no idea what that actually means. But
well, you said that you opposed the war, and I'm telling you how we got stuck into this thing.
Yeah, again, you're producing something.
Pertinent to the argument.
You're producing something as fact, and you're adding in a lot of speculation and anonymous sourcing. But what I'm trying to tell you, right, is that
multiple media outlets reported this, dude.
Yeah, they all have the same source. I agree. I don't know if you know how news works, but just because
of course
somebody, stop. I don't know if, just listen, if somebody reports something, right, but it's off of source A, and somebody else reports something, source A, somebody else reports something, and you say, well, all these people said it. No, one person said it, maybe exaggerated, maybe didn't, I don't know. Regardless, one person said it, and yes, I agree with you, multiple mainstream medias pick it up. But that's why I say, do you know what I mean when I say primary source?
Sure, let's talk about Joe Kent. He said the same exact thing, came right from the DNI. Are we going to dispute him too?
Joe
Kent is incredible as well? Like, if you don't agree with it, you pretty much say it's not credible. I'm telling you, people that
Tulsi Gabbard never said Tulsi Gabbard never specifically said that.
She said they don't have a nuclear weapon, and then Joe Kent came in later and resigned and said this war is stupid. This is not going to benefit us. It's not a strategic W. Iran's not a threat. He's saying that while being like
Joe Kent.
Over the DNI.
Except they even said that they pulled him off of this stuff even before, and he wouldn't even have as much information about any of this stuff. So sure, you can bring up Joe Kent. Joe Kent literally has been debunked. He's been shown as somebody that didn't have all this information because they pulled him off of some of this stuff before. And on top of that, listen, this is actually goes to a broader.
If they don't have the pro-Zionist
argument.
No, that's. I'm giving you people, government officials that have no incentive to be critical of Israel, and they're taking the opposite way.
Great.
And they're telling you that because it's not just.
You have to let me. You have to explain. Right. Yeah, you have to let me explain. There's a lot of people that also disagree with him that are still in the administration right now. So you saying, well, there's this guy that used to be the administration that says it, so therefore I'm only picking Zionist sources. No, I could do the same thing you're doing and start bringing up names. I'm saying it's stupid to do that in either direction. You think it's smart to do that. Fine, whatever. You continue to do that. I'm saying it's stupid to do it in either direction. Me personally.
Well, there's a reason why they're more credible, though. Number one, DNI, they oversee the entire intelligence apparatus. And then number two, they have nothing to gain by taking stances that are critical of Israel in one of the most pro-Israel administrations ever. So that gives them an enormous amount of credibility because it goes against it goes against the administration. So that gives them instant credibility.
It doesn't give them instant credibility. And they do, especially Joe Kent has a lot of reason to actually do that. And also, this goes to a bigger thing. I don't really trust a lot of these people who seem to have been just recently Democrats who have infiltrated themselves into the Trump administration. Now, that's a different topic, to be fair, and we can talk about that now or later or another day. But I do have I find it very interesting that a lot of these people that are saying this stuff, not just in the administration, but people like Tucker Carlson, a lot of these people were just registered Democrats not very long ago, or we know for a fact hated Trump and have now embedded themselves in the Trump administration. And maybe this is the biggest coincidence ever, but it's funny how those are always the ones that are giving us all this bad information and saying how Israel this, Israel that, and Trump's screwing this up. Notice how it's always the people that were just Democrats 5 seconds ago. Or people that we know, like Tucker Carlson, who literally said he couldn't stand President Trump when they had the release during that one lawsuit at Fox News, when he had to issue discovery. He was a Democrat. I think Tucker was registered Democrat from 2006 to 2020. Joe Kent was literally just a registered Democrat before. So yeah, sure, if you want to use them as a credible source, go for it. I don't really care. My overall point, right? I'm not going to say that this war was perfect. I would have never said that it would be quick. But what I am saying is that Iran has been a threat.
Israel dragged us in? Do you agree that Israel dragged us in?
Nobody can drag us in. We make that decision ourselves. No, I'm serious. You can laugh at that, but can you debunk that? We drag ourselves in or don't. Israel does not have the ability. In fact, you admitted to this earlier, actually. Israel does not have the ability to force us into anything. So if you want to say Trump made a bad decision by listening, whatever, you do you. But to try to twist that... But to try to twist that into they dragged us in, that's fucking insane. Of course they didn't drag us. We are the United States of fucking America. If we want to get into something, then take the ownership and say we did that. Don't try to put this on some country that's the size of New Jersey, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take away responsibility of anyone, including whether it's Trump or whatever.
I said Trump is a moron for that. I've said that a million times. Trust me, I voted for Trump and I've been extremely critical of this Iran war. But I do think it's fair to say that he relied upon faulty Israeli intelligence, and then also the fact that when Israel attacks, American bases are going to be attacked, and it forced his hand. Okay?
Yeah,
like,
so that's
where he had to get involved.
That's
what I'm saying.
That's nonsense. Obviously, so you're telling me. Let me ask you a question. So when Bibi had this secret meeting, when he went around the back and he had this meeting and he provided 2 different options, which one did Trump pick in those options? Did he pick the first one where he said, "Hey, we're not going to get involved, but good luck to you guys," or did he say, "We'll get involved"? When was that? Or which one did he pick? I'm sorry.
I don't know when he actually confirmed. I know that he met with obviously Marco Rubio, JD Vance, Hegseth, and they had a discussion. They went over the pros and the cons. And then obviously he made the decision. So I don't know if he made the decision right then and there when Netanyahu was there. But
but was it before February 28th at least that he made the decision?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So let me get this straight. So you just walked yourself into a corner, and I'll tell you why. Because either he picked the first option, like you guys do it on your own, but we got you. We'll cheer you on from the sidelines, or he picked the "we'll join you." Clearly, it's the second one, because you just admitted he would have picked the option before February 28th. So if he picked option 1, like, yeah, Israel's got this, he would have obviously, like you just said, he would have informed Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, etc., JD Vance, and he would have said, "Hey, Israel's going to attack Iran, and America's not going to get involved." Okay, they already gave me the option. I picked option 1. If that was the case, well, then you just debunked yourself about Marco Rubio saying, "Well, we only attacked because they attacked and we had to get involved." Or you're saying they picked option 2, Trump did, and he said to Marco Rubio, JD Vance, Pete Hegseth, "Hey, they're going to attack Iran sometime in the future. We're going to join them." And they probably had some agreements and said, "Okay, this is the plan. We pick option 2. Well, then Israel attacks on February 28th, and then that was part of the plan anyways. So which one was it? That he picked option 1, according to this anonymous source, and it wouldn't have mattered and it debunks the Marco Rubio thing? Or did he pick option 2 and it was all according to plan anyways?
Okay, nice try, but you actually walked yourself into a trap. This is exactly why Donald Trump started building a military presence in the region for months beforehand. Why? Because Donald Trump is an erratic decision maker. So it depends on how he feels on the day. You walk him into whatever. So what the president likes to do, and Pete Hegseth has said this a million times, we like to give the president options. So what they did was they set up, surrounded Iran, created an enormous amount of military presence there, because whether they decided to attack or not, it's obviously going to be scary, like, oh my God, we're going to get attacked. And he had been assembling this for a very long time. So,
right, so which option did he take?
Why they did that, and it goes back to what I told you about before, the Israelis were planning to kill these guys. Well, they made the decision that they wanted to kill Ali Khamenei on or about November of 2025 after the 12-day war failed. But they knew that after the 12-day war and they weren't able to get what they wanted. Yes, they tried to do a decapitation strike. They failed. They couldn't kill Ali Khamenei. The United States and Israel knew that they were going to go back in, and they made the decision to go ahead and kill Ali.
Which one did they pick, option 1 or option 2?
What I am saying is that he kept his options open, mobilized military assets.
That's not what you just said.
Make a decision.
You said, of course, he picked one of the options before February 28th. Are you walking that back? Or you can tell me which option he picked, 1 or 2.
Nick, I don't know when he specifically said at the time and day saying we are going to go to war, but what I am telling you is that he had all of the assets ready to go so that he can make the decision. We know how Donald Trump is.
So which one did he pick? I don't care what day it was. I didn't ask for that. Which one did he pick? Option 1 or option 2?
He went with attacking Iran.
Okay, and he picked that before February 28th, so he picked option 2 according to you.
Yes, but what I'm telling you is...
And you agree that option 2 was specifically that we are going to attack with Israel, and that we're not going to do just Israel by themselves, because that was option 1. So if he picked that prior to February 28th, then you lied earlier when you said the only reason we got in the war is because they attacked and we didn't want to, but we had to.
No. What I am saying is that it was split. I know Marco Rubio was questioning it. J.D. Vance was questioning it. Hegseth was like, hey, let's do it. So when they first heard the briefing from Netanyahu, obviously they're deliberating, talking about it, etc. But that does not change the fact that Trump had assets in the region so that he can make a decision when it's go time. He obviously sat on it for a while. That's the way Donald Trump is. With the 12-day war, what did he do? He waited last minute. I'm going to go ahead and do Operation Midnight Hammer now. That's the way he is.
That's awesome. None of this has to do with okay, sure. This is
all extremely pertinent.
Sure.
This is all extremely pertinent to the discussion.
But you agree prior to February 28th. You're trying to
pinpoint a time when he made the decision. Yep. I don't know that.
I never asked when, because you already said it was before February 28th. That's good enough for me. I don't need to know if it was 27th or 26th or 25th. You're trying to pretend I'm asking that. Never once asked that. I've said multiple times, I don't care what day. As long as we agree that it was before February 28th, it doesn't matter what fucking day he did it. I don't care. But you said he picked option 2. That is clearly from your mouth, from these anonymous sources, whatever that you believe in. But if you believe in it, you have to stick with it. You said he picked option 2 prior to February 28th, which means prior to Israel striking, he already picked in his mind that they were going to strike with Israel. That's what option 2 was, and that's what you said he agreed to prior to February 28th. So the earlier sentiment of, no, we only did it because we had to because Israel struck, is now void. It's dumb. It's not reason to bring it up because you just said over and over that he picked option 2 when Netanyahu provided it to him. This is not hard.
I literally just told you, when the plan was presented, he didn't say yes right then and there.
I know. I don't know why that matters.
Obviously, he met with his people and everything else like that.
Agreed.
Okay? So we don't know when he actually made that decision. The bottom line I'm trying to make to you is this.
What does that have to do with my point? It doesn't matter when he made the decision. The fact is that he made the decision. You keep bringing that up as if it matters. It doesn't matter.
Yes, and a part of the reason why he made that decision, I'm sure, what that played into it was like, well, if we don't get involved, we might get hit back.
Yeah, that's a speculation.
They told us that they would.
Yeah, this is speculation. This is speculation. I don't care.
Before the war, that's not speculation. The Iranians literally said an attack from one will be considered an attack by both. They literally said that.
Don't care.
And it doesn't matter. That's extremely pertinent. That's extremely pertinent to the argument.
He picked option 2. And that is what you said. I don't give a shit if it was this day or the next day or the day after. He picked option 2, which means your original point of what you thought earlier is now null and void. It doesn't matter because you just admitted that he picked option 2.
Here's the problem, Nick. You're not understanding that this was a multi-variable based decision that he made on an enormous amount of facts that were happening real time. And what you're trying to do is say, no, it was just this one thing that led to him making this decision. There were other things probably that we don't know about that is classified that went into his decision making. That's the reality. We don't know what was in his mind at the time. What I do know is that he had assets ready to go so that he can make the decision at the time, so he would be able to cover himself. If I want to get involved in the conflict, I can. If I don't want to get involved in the conflict, I don't have to. It's better to have and not need than need and not have. That's simple, dude. You're sitting here saying like you think it's like one variable that made him make this decision. No, dude. There's a bunch of different variables that went into him. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it one thing.
I'm saying
I'm telling you that I'm telling you it's far more complex than what you're trying to assimilate, where it's just Netanyahu attacking. There's other factors that were involved as well. I
was using your own words that you said. I didn't say any of that stuff. You're just adding all that in. I never said any of that. I took what you said, what you believe to be true. Because you're downgrading
the complexity of the decision that what went into the decision. I'm giving you just parts of what made him probably decide that, but it's not just Israel attacking them while we got dragged in. There were other things. His ego, a legacy. He had Venezuela. He got Venezuela quickly. 96 hours. You'll have the oil of Iran. Then you could go to China. There was a bunch of different things going on in Trump's head.
So we didn't get dragged in. Perfect. So we didn't get dragged in. You just think Trump was high ego and he's dumb.
Two things can be true at once, at the same time. Two things can be true. It could be he had an ego while simultaneously also making a bad decision. Like
no, I agree with that. Just definitely not because we got dragged in. Because earlier you said the only reason we entered was specifically because they launched, so we felt like we had to. But then you came up with this magical meeting, right? But that's not true at all because he already picked option 2 before that day even happened. Anyways, we don't know exactly which day, but definitely before February 28th. So he had already told Israel, because obviously after he talks with Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and JD Vance, he's gonna obviously tell Israel, all right, thanks for the offering both plans. We're going to go with option 2. All of this would have been, regardless of what day it was, would have been before February 28th by your own admission. So Israel was operating under the fact that they were confirmed option 2. That's your words. I said what you said, and it was before February 28th. So why should we blame Israel?
All the other stuff that
why should we blame Israel for thinking, oh, okay, hey, now Bibi goes to his cabinet. Hey, just so you guys know, America picked option 2. So we're going to attack on, and I'm sure they planned it out. We're going to do it on this day. We'll inform America. All of this happened before February 28th by your own admission.
Again, you are just pinning it on one thing.
I'm not pinning on one thing, but that's a pretty complex thing. That's something that's pretty
being dense now. It's like you're purposely being dense and like you're not analyzing that this was a complex decision that had many multiple factors. It wasn't just the Israelis attacking and us being inevitably attacked back. It was other things as well. And then you add in Trump's erratic decision making. Nobody knows what Trump is going to do, bro. That's just the way he is. He makes decisions like day of, right? So, I mean, hell, Tucker Carlson went and begged them not to go to the war a couple of days before he attacked. Like, you know what I mean? Like Charlie Kirk did the same thing.
Tucker Carlson.
He makes decisions. He makes decisions like day of pretty much. So like, this is just like you're.
Listen,
I don't know what's going on here.
This is a different subject, and I agree with you that Trump is. This is just a different subject. It's just Trump is definitely he speaks in grandiose measures. Israel. I don't really care. Well, really, I honestly, I want to, and maybe not today, but I want to get back to it because honestly, I don't really care about this. I think, again, the reason this conversation is not as fruitful is because there are some things I think you and I do agree with, and it's some of the specifics that we don't, and I accept that. But I want to debate you, and I already did the first half, and maybe we can do it again some other day and talk about more stuff about Israel-Palestine. I know you said you're not some free Palestine dude, and I get that. But there's a lot of things to say about Israel.
I'm not a free Palestine moron. Like I'm not like running around with the flag as a free Palestine. Like I understand. I'm sympathetic to the plight.
Right.
Like I'm not one of these like retarded libs. Like I understand that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I again, we don't have to do it now because it's almost 1 a.m. We can do it another time. But to me, with this Iran war, you and I disagree with some of the stuff, but it's not so much so that there's much we can get into unless we just start being extremely pedantic to one each other and try to like argue the source of the source of the source.
Israel? What's your position on our relationship with Israel? And we can end on this.
Yeah, sure. I told you earlier. I didn't really get into it, so yeah, we can end here. So earlier I said I'm not one of these Zionists that actually agrees with the whole 3.8 billion MOU, and I know you said you have more than that, but there's a lot of pro-Israelis that are like, yeah, we should do more than 3.8 billion. I'm not really for this MOU, but not for an anti-Zionist reason. It actually comes from a Zionist place. One, because the whole point of Zionism is the Jews' self-determination in their indigenous and ancestral homeland. Self-determination also comes from a place of being self-reliant more and more. And it's kind of like the same reason I want to get rid of welfare systems, because I think for blacks to grow in this country, which I want them to. We can't do that when Democrats keep giving them all these fucking handouts. And so I want to get past that so that way they can grow. Same thing with Israel, although I think Israel's grown a lot, especially for the size of its country. But a lot of it also comes from a lot of restrictions that, including us, the United States of America, let's be honest, we put a lot of restrictions on Israel that a lot of pro-Palestinians don't want to talk about. And so for me, what I'd like to see is more actual kind of investments and partnerships where we allow Israel to... Israel, by far, I think out of all of our allies, percentage-wise, spends more on their R&D from their GDP than any of our allies. Again, percentage-wise. I'm not talking about raw numbers, percentage-wise. Like 6% of their GDP goes into R&D. And it's important because China in 2023 just upped their GDP spending on R&D by a lot. And so I think out of all of our allies... Maybe there's more than just Israel, but Israel's definitely like the only or one of the only ones that actually beats out China. So we know Israel's very good when it comes to innovation, especially for the size of its country. Also, for the size of its country, per capita, Israel, more than any of our allies, Israeli-founded companies hire more Americans on American soil. It's like 255,000 American jobs. They're the highest out of any of our allies, percentage-wise, by far. It's not even close. And so what I like to see instead of this...
hire the Jews. That's fine.
Dude, there's not even that many Jews, but sure, I'm sure there's some Jews that are hired. So what? That's not the point. The point is that, look, I get it. You don't like fucking Jews. I don't really care.
They're Israelis too. I mean, they're Israelis as well. Like they're dual citizens.
What
most
percentage?
Of the time.
Well, sure, fine. If you're going to interrupt me for that, then tell me what percentage of the 255,000 Americans are dual citizen Israelis?
Oh, I don't know, but I know.
So then why are you interrupting me to bring this up?
A lot of Israelis carry a second passport is what I'm trying to, because you're saying, oh, they give us jobs, America's jobs.
No,
yeah.
This is in America, dude. This is in America. These are American jobs in America. I'm not even
counting in Israel.
No,
okay.
I'm talking about in America, dude. Yes.
Carry on.
In America. No, in America, that's what they do. It's like 255,000 jobs. But like what I'm trying to get at is what I would like us to see is not this whole like, hey, we give you $500 million that goes straight to missile defense. $3.3 billion is kind of a credit system where you're required to spend at minimum 75% back into the American economy. Israel usually beats that every year anyways. Last year or maybe the year before, they spent like 10 times the amount into our economy. Every single year on average, on exports, they spend $24 billion into our economy, $55 billion in trade back and forth. And so what I like to see is not, hey, we give you this money and we're also going to control you and we're going to say don't do this and don't build this plane and don't do this munitions. No, what I want to do is pull all that money out and tell Israel, go free. Like you go ahead and start doing your weaponization. We know that they can do stuff that a lot of the times beats out even American equipment. I want to see them do more of that. And then if something's good, just being a partner with Israel, I'd like America to be like, yeah, we'll buy that. They can even offer discounts because of a friendship thing, whatever. I don't really care. That can be separately worked out. What I'm saying is I like to invest in some of this stuff, which would only help America. It would get us more out of the Middle East like you want. And it will allow Israel to actually grow even more. Dude, Israel just a couple days ago, they were the first country that just found a new way to help people. There was a subject who had like 20 plus years of addiction. I don't remember with what. He was taking like 130 fucking painkillers a day. I thought that sounded stupidly impossible. Turns out it's actually a thing for some people. And they found a 20-minute non-operation or non-surgical operation to actually get people past addiction. Israel just figured that out, and they expect they're going to start using it for PTSD victims, etc. So we know that they can do a lot of innovation. A lot of times it helps American jobs. NVIDIA, the biggest company in the whole world, right? NVIDIA is in Israel, R&D, Intel, Microsoft, stuff like that. So long story short, I know I'm kind of yapping, but I'll wrap it up right now. I want to shift from this whole like, oh yeah, we're totally friends, but really we're controlling you, and here's a 3.8 billion, and it's American taxpayer money to you. I want to shift that to innovation and investment on both ends. I'm sure they can find a way to do it to us, and it'll help them too. That's great. But that's what I'd like to shift to.
Okay. For me, I think we should just stop. We would basically give them an ultimatum. You guys are going to figure out the Palestine question, or else we're going to completely stop aid, because this is the big problem that's creating all the issues, is the Palestine question. It's why other countries don't want to go ahead and join the Abraham Accords. It's why there's constant fighting. It's why there's constant wars. That is the, beginning of the problem. And then, we let them pick. If we can figure out some type of framework, whether it's a one state or a two state, whatever you guys prefer.
What are you for?
But if you
just out of curiosity, what are you for? I'm not trying to cut you off. There's
drawbacks and positives to both. The one state is probably the most viable at this point, right? But I understand that they want to maintain a Jewish majority of 80%, and that's not feasible with the birth rates of Palestinians. And the two-state just might not be feasible because the Israelis are not going to allow Palestinians to be next to them with their own military. So it's like, you know, put them all under one house, just turn the West Bank, Gaza, turn it all into Israel, take it over, and make it one country, give everybody a passport. But are they going to do that? Probably not, because like I said before, representation in the government, you know, they want to be able to call it a Jewish state.
Not to cut you off again, but you should look into, and I'm not saying I agree with this, I'm just saying maybe you might like it. There's a guy named Dr. Mordecai Cater. He actually comes up with what he calls the 8-state solution. It's called the Emirates plan. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't know. It's something to look into.
I'll look into that. I look into that one, 8-state plan. Okay. So I would say, look, we're going to give you guys 1.5 to 2 years to come out with some kind of framework and actually make real moves towards getting through it. And if you don't, then this is what we're going to do. Israel, we are removing all diplomatic ties. We are no longer going to support you in any type of fashion, not just the military aid. We're going to not deal with you guys politically, not deal with you guys diplomatically. We're not going to cover for you guys anymore. You guys are going to be on your own. And what's going to happen is this is going to put Israel in a position where they finally have to actually negotiate and make some type of concessions and actually pursue some type of peace, because they don't have to, because they're the strongest military in the region. Also, I want to say this. I find it absolutely ridiculous and hypocritical that the Israelis harp on the Iranians for running a nuclear program when the Israelis have a nuclear program that's pretty much illegal, that they stole uranium from us to get, and they ran it against the will of John F. Kennedy, which ended up getting him killed to some degree. And I know a lot of Israelis in your chat are going to get mad about that, but there's absolutely Israeli fingerprints all over the JFK assassination. Sure. There's Zionist fingerprints all over 9/11. They were there observing the towers get knocked down. They don't want to hear facts, but it is what it is.
I would be more than glad to debate you on all of that.
Sure, we can have another discussion on all this. The USS Liberty.
Real quick, do you think there was 5 dancing Israelis?
Yes, they were. This is irrefutable fact. There was
it's
FBI
very
302s
refutable. There was no documentation of FBI saying anyone dancing. It actually comes from the father of Mohammed Atta. He's the actual only one that ever said anything about them dancing. There were 5 Israelis arrested, but I'm asking you if you thought
being pedantic again. Were they actually fucking moonwalking? No, they were.
No,
they
were not dancing. No, that it doesn't say that either.
Celebrating and cheering, flicking lighters. That's what the witness saw. Like, see, you take everything I say very literally, and it's like they're called the dancing Israelis, not because they were moonwalking.
The reason I asked,
because they were celebrating.
Sure, and I'll post the clip. But the reason I ask is actually because, and I don't know, maybe you got corrected and you changed your mind, so that's why I asked you to give you that chance. But I saw a video of you specifically saying that they were dancing, and you even said, and I find this funny, you even said they weren't just dancing, they were moonwalking, which I think you were being hyperbolic with that, but you actually did say they were dancing, and you did believe they were specifically dancing. But that being said, the FBI report never even said anything about celebration. The old woman said that they looked like they were being, I believe she used the word erratic. And by the way, there was over like 500 people fucking arrested that day. In fact, do you know which ethnicity was by far the ones that were most arrested that day for odd behaviors, whether it was dancing or worse or less? Do you know which ethnicity was number 1 by far?
Go ahead, tell me.
It was Pakistanis, actually. And so you know why we talk about these 5 Israelis? And let's be honest. And I think if you're going to be honest, you'll admit to this being true. It's because they're Jews. Because there was a lot of people that were doing stuff way worse than even let's assume they were dancing. They weren't. Again, this comes from the father of Mohammed Atta, who was one of the hijackers. He was the actual one that brought this up. But even if they were dancing, there was people doing shit way worse than that. And there's not one, I bet you if I asked you, you wouldn't know one other person, but everyone knows about these 5 Israelis.
Dude, you argue in bad faith so many times. It's like, I heard you say moonwalking. Like, really, man?
No, you thought they were dancing.
Having fun with it.
You thought they were dancing. Don't pretend like you didn't.
They were jumping up and down, flicking lighters, and the witness.
That's also incorrect.
The witness said this. Okay, the witness said that's exactly what she said. She looked out her window. She saw these men jumping up and down, celebrating, cheering, taking pictures, etc. This is what she told the FBI. This is what's in the FBI 302s. This is all irrefutable fact. And the other thing that I was going to say is that 2 of these guys failed polygraphs, and when they did their database checks, they found out that they had links to Israeli intelligence. Look, sure. I am not going to sit here and tell you that the Jews did 9/11. I'm not going to do that.
Because I was just going to ask you, did you know that the Mossad actually, like a month or 2 before 9/11, gave a list of known terrorist operatives to the United States? They said, hey, we know these people are operating in your country, and not all of them, but a lot of them were the hijackers 9/11. Why would Israel do that if, again, I guess you're saying that Israel didn't do 9/11?
Okay, so let me be clear about this. I'm not one of these morons that's going to sit here and say, the Jews did 9/11. No. What I am saying is that there was absolutely prior knowledge They witnessed it.
Yeah, they told
observed
them.
it. They knew it was
They
going to
gave that
happen.
information
Okay.
to. They gave that information to the United States.
Okay, well, so did the CIA. We can make arguments about the Bush administration not
Right,
taking
but
threats seriously.
dude, what
the
you're
CIA
saying
warned them as well.
Yes, but what you're saying right now is that you're blaming Israel because you are being fair and saying you don't think they did it, but you're saying they had prior knowledge, but they gave some of this knowledge to America. So what more do you want them to do? Go and stop the plane? Like what?
Okay, what did they give exactly?
Yeah, they gave a list. I can get the exact number, but they gave an entire list.
Give it to me, because what Israel does a lot of the times is they'll have the information, they'll give a warning, but they won't be specific.
No, they gave them
what happened with
they gave them
Beirut bombing.
No, they gave them they gave them a list. They gave them a list of known terrorist operatives that were in the United States, and of that list, some of it cross-examined with the ones that were the hijackers. Some of the hijackers.
How many hijackers were on the list?
I want to say it was 5 or 6, but I don't know the exact number. I can look.
Okay. And again, people had been, and here's the thing, everybody knew about these hijackers. People were watching them. FBI was watching them. There was a disconnect with the CIA and the FBI not sharing information.
True.
Whatever.
True.
Let's not deflect from the main point here. The bottom line is this: a allied country had intelligence operatives witnessing a terrorist attack that they knew was going to happen, and they were celebrating after seeing the attack, and they had tickets to leave the country beforehand, and they were using moving companies as a front for this. And there's an entire Israeli ring that was disrupted out of Tennessee as well, who were procuring fake documents, and a DMV woman that got them the documents mysteriously died, and then one of them had been at the towers weeks before the attack, working on the fire sprinklers. There's just a lot of things that don't add up here, okay? So
yeah, so again, a couple things. Nothing nothing says that they know. Okay, but you're lying. Nothing at all said that they knew that the terrorist attack was going to happen. Let me ask you something. Do you agree, regardless of how you feel about Israel,
do you want me to pull up the 302 right now and show you that you're lying?
Sure. I'm going to ask you something. What are you talking about? To know that
there's multiple times where you'll say, like, that's not true, and I'm like, what? Or you'll say something like that, and actually what you're saying isn't true. Like you'll challenge something hoping that I won't be able to tell you actually no, like with the 14-point plan that they would withdraw from the region. That's not true. Then you look it up. Oh, it is true.
First off, no, that's not what happened with the 14-point plan. You made it sound like, and you even admitted you kind of made it sound like that it was more than that. I was talking about they're just withdrawing the troops that have to do with the war. I told you that
was strategically ambiguous because they wanted to say
okay, but at that point that is okay, but at that point that is just speculation. In that case, maybe you're right, maybe you're not, but I don't care. Hold on. You said
I saw the prior plan, so I know what it was.
Sure. So what you're
watered
saying
down more and more as they got closer to the MOU.
Sure. So what you're saying, right, is that they knew. Now I'm asking you, do you agree, regardless of how you feel about Israel, that the Mossad is one of the best intelligence agencies in the world?
Absolutely. I've always said that.
Okay.
I always give the Israelis their credit on that.
Do you think that it makes sense that these super professional, high-end, one of the greatest in the world's intelligence agencies are for some reason not gonna just turn on the fucking morning news and you can just see it on the TV? For whatever reason, they're gonna send 5 people there, right? And then those people are not even gonna hide because they were, I think, on a parking garage or something. They're not even gonna go one level down where there's at least a roof above their head so nobody sees them. No. They're gonna go on the very top, and they're going to inspect what they already know, quote unquote, is going to happen. And then on top of that, they're going to start, what'd you say, flicking lighters and jumping up and down and celebrating and high-fiving. No.
That's what the witness
Great,
said.
perfect.
I got to piss real quick. Hold that thought.
All right.
Real quick.
I guess I'll do that too then.
Oh, he probably went to go piss too. Okay. Chat, what did he say again about the 302 intelligence agencies, right? Let me see if I can find this here.
All right, my question for you is that you agree that they are a high-end intelligence agency. Does it make sense for you that these people who are so high-end, so professional, one of the best in the world, right? that they are going to not only just, instead of just turning on the fucking morning news, like they really want to know if this happened or not, they can just fucking turn on the TV. They don't need to send people all the way across the fucking ocean. But fine, whatever your excuse is for that. Let's just assume that they thought that was the smart decision. So they bring them in. And then on top of that, they're not going to not stand on the fucking roof of, I believe it was a parking garage. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. They could just
parking lot, apartment parking lot.
Right. They could just have watched from inside the van. They could have went inside of a building. They could have, they're intelligent. Like, they are one of the best in the world. They could have done a billion different things. But for some reason, not only were they too stupid to turn on the TV, this great intelligence agency was too stupid to not stand out in the fucking open where people can just look out the window. But on top of that, let's say they were all stupid on all of that too. Somehow they were too stupid to not just start jumping up and down and flicking lighters. Now, there's a couple things that could actually answer this question on why, let's say they were quote unquote celebrating, right? Well, there is a lot of, have you seen the interview with Netanyahu prior to 9/11 where he said that the Twin Towers could be brought down?
Yeah, he wrote a book about it too, with Islamic terrorism.
Right, and a lot of dumbasses, well, I don't know if you're one of them, but maybe you're not, but a lot of dumbasses try to use that as like, oh, see, they did 9/11 because he was talking about, you know, the Twin Towers coming down beforehand. But you know why he was bringing that up, right?
Well, they had already tried in 93.
Exactly. Perfect. So he was talking, right. And so that's
Ramsey Youssef.
Right. And so you are obviously smart, and a lot of dumbasses
I'm good faith, dude. I'm good.
I'm with you. Like, I'm with you. And I'm with you. And so my point is that like you said, he was talking about like, well, they tried in 93. So he was saying this kind of stuff can actually happen. And so same thing. There's people that talk about like even some Israelis who came out after 9/11, not dancing or jumping up and down, but they were happy not because an ally got hit. They were sad about that, and obviously the loss of human life, but they were also coming from a place of like, now maybe America or the West can see some stuff.
What we feel.
Yes. And I'm not saying that's necessarily right or wrong, but that's not the point. I'm just saying I understand that point of view. So there's ways to understand this quote unquote celebrating, but I don't think it's as much as you're saying it is. But you said that they knew for a fact that 9/11 was going to happen, and so they sent 5 Mossad agents there specifically so that way they can observe it instead of just turning on the morning news.
Let me be very honest. Like, here's the thing. I don't know if it was Mossad. There's many different intelligence agencies that. No,
it was connected to the Mossad. 3 of them were connected to the Mossad, not all 5.
It can be any of their, they have several. They got Amman, they got UN-8200 IDF components. They got obviously Mossad.
When it comes to foreign stuff, it wouldn't be Shabak. It would be Mossad.
Yeah, but Shin Bet would be internal. But the point I'm trying to make is that they had foreknowledge. They were there like an hour early. They obviously took a great vantage point so that they can actually see the towers get hit. A witness saw them celebrating and flicking lighters. That's what she said. And then then 1 or 2 of them failed their polygraphs when asked questions about, do you work for an intelligence service? And again, let me be explicit about this. I am not saying that the Jews did 9/11. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they had foreknowledge before it happened.
Where are you getting that from? So, like, the reason
you want me to look? You want me to show you right now? Like, I can literally. I'm looking.
When you say foreknowledge, what do you mean? Like, hey, they had some terrorist operatives, but we don't know exactly. Or are you saying they knew on the morning of 9/11 with these specific planes, these were going to be rammed into the World Trade Center? Is that what you mean?
I'll take it a step further. They knew it the night before. They threw a party. Those Israelis threw a party the night before, and it's going to be funny how you don't believe me? Ask Ryan Dawson. He called a DJ because they found when the FBI went in their van. Right? There was a flyer for a party in Brooklyn, okay? And they hired a DJ for that party. Ryan spoke to that DJ, and that DJ said, yeah, they threw a party before and didn't really say what it was about, but they were celebrating and they were super happy. So they threw a party in Brooklyn the night before.
That doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to be real with you. I don't really.
So the timing isn't strange.
People throwing.
To throw a party in Brooklyn.
People throwing
and then
parties.
That party flyer is in the van as they're getting apprehended by the police. That's not a clue.
What does this have to do? I'm not asking for clues. You said specifically that they knew. Hold on. You said that they knew literally everything, not just like there's some known operatives, maybe something's gonna happen. You said they knew down to the last detail exactly what's gonna happen.
I never said that. I said that they had foreknowledge.
Oh, okay, so no, and I'm gonna repeat, and maybe you're not listening, and you should, because I said, wait a minute, Myron, when you say this, do you mean? And I literally labeled all that out, and you responded, and I quote, and you can rewind on the YouTube if you don't believe me. I'll take it even one step further, meaning you agreed with what I said. and you were going
Oh.
to take it there further. So
I
you
was
did
looking at
say
this
that.
FBI report. I'm
Okay.
trying to find a way to get
So
through this
I'll
FBI
ask
report.
you again then.
Yeah,
do
list it out.
you,
Sorry.
sure, do you, when you say they had foreknowledge, you just mean they thought like, okay, there's some terrorists operating in America, but we don't know when or what? Or do you mean we know that these terrorists on the morning of 9/11 are going to take these planes and drive them into the World Trade Center?
They knew something was going to happen because they were at the perfect vantage point to look at it. They threw a party beforehand. Okay. They were celebrating when it happened. And then they all had plane tickets to leave the country shortly thereafter. And they all had strange jobs working for a moving company that had like no real history and had a significant amount of computer
a
hardware when the
yes?
FBI did search warrants.
Is that a yes? They knew all that, at least, maybe more, but at least that.
They knew that something was going to happen.
Well, you're saying they got a vantage point, so clearly they knew that World Trade Center was coming down.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
Okay,
probably to some
see,
degree.
you went from it's
They knew
a
something was
fact,
happening.
and now you're saying probably. You earlier, when the reason all of this started is because you said this as if it was a fact, and now you're saying probably. So how do you know these 5 Mossad agents flew into America specifically because they knew that 9/11 in its context was going to happen?
They had been in the country for several months working for moving companies, okay? As they had been in the country working for these moving companies, obviously, the strange thing is that some of these
We
moving
have an
companies
answer for
were
this, just so
close-
you know, but keep going. Just so you know, there's an answer for this already.
I'm giving you all the facts that would lead one to believe that they had foreknowledge. I'm explaining all this.
Can
'cause
I
it's not
answer
they
that
flew
point
in
real quick
just
then?
for 9/11.
Okay.
It's not like they flew in just for 9/11. They had been there
Right.
for months working for a moving company that was fronted as that was a
Right.
front for an intelligence service. by
Perfect. So
Israel.
let me answer that, and we already know this because of, like I said, the list of 19 that they gave and other stuff as well. There was another one, and I can look it up separately.
And they showed up early at like 8 a.m.
Okay,
or
there
maybe
was-
even earlier to
they-
get that specific
they
vantage
were-
point. How does this
right.
not prove they had
Okay.
foreknowledge?
Great. So this, when you said that they were there for months, first off, they have foreknowledge. They would have just went there maybe the day before or maybe a couple days before. They were actually working, and the Mossad has actually admitted to this, that they've done operations inside the United States tracking known terrorists, a lot of them from the Middle East, who make their way to South America. They do operations there as well. They've done operations in America because a lot of these terrorists want to embed themselves into America. In fact, a lot of sleeper cells that we have found and have shut down, some of that comes from Israeli intelligence. So thank you for that. But that being
Yeah, if
said,
you hadn't interrupted me, I would have told you that they were following around the terrorists. That's why they had these movie companies, because it was a perfect front to follow these guys around and have plausible deniability to be following them
but
around.
They
I
talked
literally was
about
gonna
it.
say but you interrupted me.
They were not following around like Mohammed Atta and stuff like that, who was one of the main hijackers of 9/11. They were actually following
One
around
of
a
them had a house
separate
in
group.
Miami Beach.
Right.
One of them had a house in Miami Beach that wasn't far from Hollywood, Florida, which is where Mohammed Atta was, and several of the other
Sure,
hijackers.
great. But what I'm saying is that they were actually tracking a lot of people that were sleeper cells in America. They weren't tracking specifically 9/11, but that's not my point is what you said earlier, because I said you're speculating and you kind of laughed at that. Are you saying that they were specifically tracking 9/11 and they knew exactly, or at least almost exactly, what was going to happen to the point of the location? Or are you speculating that?
Okay. Here's the facts. They knew where to be, what time to be, where to look, and
This
the
is all
approximate time.
speculation. You have no idea what they were there or not there
This is
for.
not
This has
speculation.
not.
Everything I just said. Hold on. What I did there was I presented the facts, and then you come to the conclusion. That's not speculation. I told you the facts, and then I would say a reasonable person would believe, yeah, they probably had some foreknowledge if they were able to show up there early, know what was going to happen, brought lighters, they had a party
How
the
do
night
you
before,
know they knew
were
what was
working at a
going to
movie company.
happen? You keep adding that in. They knew what was going to happen. Where are you getting this from?
Why else would they randomly show up at a parking lot of an apartment building in New Jersey
I have
overlooking
no idea. Just have you ever read the FBI commission report?
for 9/11, the
9/11,
9/11 Commission report? Yes, I've went through it. It's a lot of
Okay.
bullshit.
Well, okay, so there's actually, and it's not even
bullshit.
just in that commission report, also separately, there's also other witnesses that talk about these 5 Israelis. And now there was the original lady, the old lady that called. They interviewed other people that also saw them, right, that were in that building. And they all, almost all of them, I can't say every single one, but almost all of them disagreed with the old lady, and they said no, they weren't celebrating. Some said slightly different things. So when you're saying like, oh, this one person specifically said that they were celebrating, they were doing all this stuff, we have no idea what they were doing because other witnesses said the opposite of what this old lady said. So that doesn't mean she's wrong, that doesn't mean they're right. I'm just saying that people said different things about this same exact group of people. You're taking that information, you're cherry picking one of the source, the original lady, right? And you're just trying to extrapolate. This must mean that they knew about 9/11 down to the fucking detail. And I'm trying to ask you, where does that come from?
What I am doing is I'm going off the facts, and then you come up with a conclusion. Notice how I didn't make any conclusion, really. I just told you what the facts are.
You did actually make a conclusion. You can rewind. You did say it if it was a fact.
Because when you show everything there, a reasonable person will believe, okay, they had foreknowledge. Again, they were in the United States for months with a movie company that was fronted by a foreign intelligence service. Number two, they showed up at the precise time, location to know where something was going to happen. They brought cameras with them to take pictures. That's why the FBI was able to develop Polaroids. They had a party before, as shown by the DJ flyer when they were stopped. They had large amounts of currency and tickets to leave the United States shortly thereafter. The moving company that they worked for had an enormous amount of computers and data storage, which doesn't really sync up with a moving company. The guy that owned the moving company, Dominic Suter, fled to Israel right after this. When they brought him in for questioning, 2 of them failed polygraphs. One or two of them hit for foreign intelligence services. So if you take all of these different facts that I gave,
that means the Mossad is operating in the United States. Yes.
A reasonable person would believe, you don't have to say that. A reasonable person would believe, you know what? Maybe there's some foreign intelligence here that had some foreknowledge that something was going to happen and they let it happen, or they were observing something that was going to happen. And then here's the crazy part. Here's the kicker. When they got back to Israel after they got deported by INS, Immigration Naturalization Service, when they got back to Israel, what did they do? They went on a TV talk show and they admitted that they were there to observe an event. Like, come on, Nick.
They didn't say observe. Like, no. What they said, because everything you just explained 100% proves that, yes, there's Mossad agents, which I don't even think actually all 5 of them are connected to the Mossad. If I remember correctly, I believe it was 3, but I could be wrong about that. But regardless,
2 of them hit for foreign intelligence. They had a foreign intelligence hit when they did their background checks.
Sure.
One of them failed a polygraph when asked about it.
Right. But what they were talking about is that they were there because nobody denies that Mossad doesn't operate inside of America to observe terrorists. You're trying to take that and you're trying to extrapolate that to 9/11. And what you're doing is you just proved everything of what I was saying before. Yes, I agree that Mossad has operated and has observed terrorist organizations in the United States. In fact, they've helped us eliminate a lot of terrorists or get rid of these sleeper cells, which is a very good thing. Everything you just said proves that. It doesn't prove that they knew about 9/11.
Well, again, they were there. They had foreknowledge of it. And I don't like a foreign intelligence service in our country observing the worst terrorist attack ever, while knowing what was going to happen. Like, I don't consider that the practices of an ally. Again,
you were a police officer, right? Or DHS?
Yep.
Is a polygraph admissible in court?
No, the polygraphs, no.
Why not?
You can't use them. They're a tool to detect deception. And let me get this straight.
Okay.
Let me be clear about this. I hate polygraphs. I think they're bullshit too.
But you're using it as one of your reasons and stuff. Just wanted to make sure.
I'm using it in conjunction with all the other evidence that I presented to you, man.
The other evidence proves
that they got hits in their databases as well. And when they asked him a question about, are you an intelligence operative, he failed it and this deception was detected. So I'm not using the polygraph as an isolated variable. I'm using it in conjunction with a bunch of other very powerful pieces of evidence. You keep doing this to me, Nick, where you don't take the totality of what I'm saying and you isolate one thing and you attack that one thing and you completely remove it from my entire argument. You've been doing this the whole time. It's very disingenuous that you do that, because when I debate you, I listen to everything you say and then I actually like engage with the entire argument, not one piece of it so that I can get a gotcha. You do that all the time. And I've noticed that.
Yeah, no one's doing that.
It's incredibly infuriating.
Yeah, that's great. Nobody's doing that. Anyways,
you literally just did it. You literally just went on the polygraph when I talked about all the other.
Yes, because sure, I'm not ignoring all the other stuff. I'd be more than glad to go over it. But what you're doing right now is literally disingenuous, because of course I'm going to attack one thing at a time. I'm not ignoring everything else. But regardless, this is absolutely insane. Of course you're going off of some speculation. You're effectively admitting that because you said probably and you said words like maybe and stuff like that. You don't use those words unless you're going off of speculation. I don't even know how we got into this topic, really. I don't particularly give a shit.
I know how. I know how. It's because I was talking about my position.
I don't really give a shit.
See? I respect you enough to listen to your opinion. You're not listening to actually understand my arguments. You're listening to just argue. And that's the difference here. It's like debating a woman. And I've been very good faith here, listening to your arguments. You will isolate one thing I say, attack that one thing, completely remove the context under what I presented that fact with, and then you will go ahead and say, "See, you're not right because I isolated this one thing."
I never said any of that. I never.
And then you confidently say you're wrong, or you say some other stuff when you're actually the one that's wrong.
Right.
And this has been demonstrable throughout the debate.
I got this. Anyways, dude, listen, relax. Okay, you're crashing out right now. I've never done any of that. I'm
not crashing out.
Holy shit.
I'm just calling you out on being
I
a
got
bad faith
you.
debater.
Yeah. So I'm not. I don't really care what you're saying because the point is first off, we're supposed to be debating Yeah, great. We're supposed to be debating Israel-Palestine. We did that on part 1. I thoroughly made my points very clear and cooked the fucking shit out of you. Everything else, great.
No, you didn't.
Okay, well, we'll just see what happens. Anyways, everything else, like I said, we moved on from the Iran stuff because I actually agreed with some of the stuff you were saying. I don't agree with all of it, but it's at the point where it's like kind of pedantic to actually try to go past beyond just like the specifics of the specifics that we disagree with. That's not bad faith. It's just I literally said I agree with you. If I was bad faith, I would have just fucking said I disagree with you no matter what. I'm literally telling you I agreed with you. That's the opposite of bad faith. And then as for the 9/11, like the 5 dancing Israelis and stuff, listen, I don't particularly care if you think Israel did or didn't do it. I know you don't think they did it, but I'm just saying I don't really care if you did even think they did it. I don't really care if you think they like had foreknowledge. I was actually just
fingerprints all over it. Is what I said.
Yeah, and you said that they had foreknowledge, right?
But there were Zionist fingerprints in it, and they had foreknowledge. Yes, I think we can comfortably say that.
What I'm saying is I don't actually particularly care. Like some people literally in my chat was like, "Oh, debate him on what he thinks about like this and what he said about Jews here and there." And I literally said, and you can go back in my live. I don't know if you heard me say this or not because you were in my chat.
No, I heard it.
Right. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I really don't care that you say straight up like I fucking hate every single Jew. I wouldn't care if you said I want every single Jew. I never said that. No, I know you didn't. I'm saying I don't care even if you said that. You're not understanding my point. I'm saying I don't give a shit even if you said that. I don't care. So I was curious a little bit about what you meant about the 9/11 thing, but I'm not gonna debate you on it because I'm not even like trying to I'm not even trying to flake on it. I don't give a shit. Even if you told me that every single Jew in the world planned it, I still wouldn't care.
Well, I mean, and that's fine. I was telling you why we shouldn't support Israel, and then you said, "Oh, the 9/11 stuff, we could say that for another debate." I was like, "Okay, cool, no problem." And then I continued on, and then you engaged in the argument saying it's not true, and then I said, "No, it is true. There's FBI 302s that show this," and then that's how it all started. See, I remember everything and how we got
FBI 302s didn't say that.
They actually do, and I can give you the link. There's an FBI 302 right here. I actually got on my screen. Your fans can go ahead and look at it. There's an entire website, okay, that shows FBI 302s that has Israelis. Dude, Nick, I'm going to be very honest.
I'm saying that 302 didn't say your original thing. I'm not saying it doesn't say any of that stuff. I'm saying it doesn't say with the like that they specifically knew that this stuff was actually going to happen, and so they went there to actually, and they didn't tell America about it at all. That's what I said the 302 didn't say. Does the 302 say that?
The 302 describes how they got there early, what the witness saw.
Okay, I'm gonna try asking the question one more time. Does the 302 say that Israel knew about 9/11 before 9/11 happened?
As a federal agent, it is your, and I can tell you this from experience.
Why can't you just answer the question? Does the 302 say that?
No, they're not going to do that.
Okay, great.
They're not going to say that.
Okay,
because they cannot come. Their job is to. I'm telling you because I used to do this job. Okay, I used to do this job. Your job is to write the report, present the facts, and then it's the reader's job to come to their own conclusion and what's reasonable.
Great, perfect. So we agree. It doesn't actually say that. Now, if you say that that's what you interpreted as after the fact, fine, that's all good. But that's not what you originally said. You changed it to that. You originally said the 302 says that specifically. Now you're saying it doesn't say that, but you believe that's what it's implying. Fine, whatever. I'll read it later. But I just want to make sure we're on the same page. It does not say that. And
that's the problem. You didn't read it. I read it. And here's the thing. I didn't even want to engage. I said, yeah, we could do a debate on it, whatever. But again, you so confidently will talk about things even if you don't know. That's crazy to me.
I asked you. You said, no, it doesn't say that directly. And so I said, okay, perfect. Thank you. I will have no problem reading it after. I'll read it. 302. Got it. I'll read the 302 report.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. There's more than just one.
Okay, but the one you're talking about is the 302 report, right?
It's a couple 302s.
What's it called specifically? The one you're referencing. What's it called? So I can look it up right now. I'll read it.
So just type in "dancing Israelis, police and FBI reports 9/11/01." It should come up right on Google. It's going to be usarchive.org.
Said police and FBI reports. You said.
If you type in "dancing Israelis, FBI reports 9/11," it should come up from US Archive. If you want, I can give you the link.
9/11
I'm going to warn you, a lot of it is redacted though. So you're going to
I'm just gonna read it because right now I'm already confident it didn't. Well, you actually agreed it didn't say what you said it said.
I told you already.
Right? So I'm already very confident already, but I'm gonna read into it to see if it even says what you said it said. But anyways, I looked it up. I think is it Internet Archive IA800903?
Yes. Yes, that's it. That's it.
All right, I'll read it.
So yeah, feel free to go through it. But like, again, the whole, I was concluding about what my issues with Israel. Again, we got to solve the Palestine question. If we don't solve the Palestine question, like you said before, you can't kill an ideology. I actually agree with you. They're going to continue to attack Israel until they have a state. These people they're not scared to die. Okay, it's a martyrdom culture. So we got to solve this geopolitical issue to appease the religious problem that people complain about all the time, because you can't kill an ideology. That's number one. Number two, if they don't want to do it, then we just don't support them anymore and let them deal with their enemies, bro. Because the reality is that Israel's a rogue state. People talk all the time about the mullahs are a crazy theocracy. I would argue the Israelis are a worse theocracy. They just, cosplay that it's secular when it's not. I would argue that the Iranians are actually far more measured than the Israelis are. And I don't think the Israelis should have a nuclear weapon.
Do you think
it's an illegal nuclear program?
Just out of curiosity,
and they stole it from us.
Right.
They were involved in the John F. Kennedy being killed.
You said all this. You're trying to get me to go down that rabbit hole.
No. I'm not trying to get you to go down.
You already said this.
Making my point.
You already.
Can I finish my point, bro? Because you've been interrupting the whole time. I didn't interrupt you when you were making your closing.
I wasn't making a closing.
Anyway, when you were saying why we should support Israel, I didn't interrupt you.
Go ahead.
You gave your talks. You said that you believe that we can have a partnership with them. They make technology. See, I can remember everything you said. Technology, have a partnership with them. They spend a lot of money on our weapons. They're innovating when it comes to medicine. You said all these things. Fair. I'm saying why we shouldn't work with them. And my reasons is, besides all the treasonous things they've done, Jonathan Pollard stealing from us, 9/11, USS Liberty, JFK assassination, them being involved in a nuclear program, against the wills of one of our presidents. And running an illegal nuclear program now, pretty much, that they strategically don't mention because they know that they can't get aid from us with one of the laws that we have. And then as far as like sharing technology with them, they're the worst people to share technology with. And there was a bill that got passed. I don't know if it got passed or not. I know it was getting pushed through, where we would be sharing defense information with them, which I think is an egregious mistake, because the Israelis are known for stealing information and technology from us. So
we already
they're one of the worst
information.
counterintelligence. Yeah, but not like our actual. We want the way this deal is going to play is that we're going to use their technology for the basis of our military tools and our military devices, which I think is a grave mistake, because we're going to be far too reliant upon using their software, which they are known for stealing technology. They're literally one of the worst counter intel agencies. Andrew Bustamante from the CIA said this. John Carricow, multiple intelligence operators.
John Carricow works for Russia. He literally called himself a Russian propagandist.
That's fine.
Also, he's the one that lied and said, we don't, and I'll quote him. He said, we don't spy on Israel, and that's set in stone. Do you agree with him on that?
Notice how I didn't use just John Carricow in isolation. I was
but why are you using him?
Just because someone might have an opinion or say something that you don't like does not
No,
necessarily
it's not a
mean what
lie. I can debunk it.
Especially, hold on, when other intel operatives also have said the same thing, that Israel's one of the worst counter intel agencies. And I'll tell you this as well, that they steal technology from us all the time. We catch them using dual use stuff and shipping stuff illegally to Israel all the time. They've been caught doing this for a while.
So when you say it's because I don't like what he said, it's not because I don't like what he said. It's because we absolutely can prove he's lying. Like I said, Operation Anarchist. Do you know what that is?
I am only assessing his comments about the Israelis and their intelligence operation, how they steal technology. That was about
Israel. Okay, Jesus Christ. Yes, a Russian propaganda.
Other intel operatives have confirmed this.
And other intel operatives have said the opposite. This is a ridiculous point of view. Your whole every argument you've almost made is essentially these people said so, so I'm right because they said so. I'm telling you, yes, you're right. I'm specifically talking about John right now. But this is a pretty important thing because we know he's lied. Not he said things you don't like. He said we are not allowed to spy on Israel, and that's written in stone. That's not true because Operation Anarchist was into the 90s all the way into the 2000s until Edward Snowden actually exposed it, and we were continuing to do it even after that, which was a specifically was targeted amongst multiple countries, but specifically the heightened country was spying on Israel. So yeah, sure, you can use your sources, but who fucking cares? Because these sources are nonsense.
Again, from my professional experience, Andrew Bustamante, former CIA, John Kirikou. You don't have to like John Kirikou, but a broken clock can still be correct twice a day. And I've heard this from many people, you know, in the professional world, whether, you know, being a federal agent or the intel world, law enforcement, whatever. The Israelis steal technology from the United States, and they're one of the biggest counterintelligence threats to us. It is what it is. My thing is, I don't think that we should be using our military infrastructure should not be built upon Israeli technology. And I don't think that they're a good ally. They drag us into wars. They're not as measured as people say. I find it interesting how 1,200 people died on October 7th, and this has led to a full-fledged regional war with the Israelis. Meanwhile, the Iranians lost roughly 1,000 people as well during the 12-day war. And what did? They did a ceasefire. So tell me who's more of a measured country. The country that did a genocide after 1,200 theirs died, or a country that lost 1,000 people and still did a ceasefire and did a symbolic strike on the United States?
Are we back to genocide?
What?
Are we back to genocide?
You don't agree that it's a genocide, and that's
the definition doesn't agree. But regardless, to answer your question, can you give me any time?
Knows it's a genocide,
sure.
And
can
all
you give me
no more than you call it a genocide?
So you agree that they killed those 1,200 people with, let's say, grenades, AK-47s, rifles, RPGs, fire accelerants? I'm sure maybe I'm missing some equipment, but generally that's what they killed the 1,200 people with. Hamas.
Oh, okay. On that day,
yes.
Yes.
And so you agree that Israel has significantly more capability than just the things that I just listed. Can you just tell me, has Israel ever killed a rate of 1,200 people in about 4 to 6 hours in Gaza with significantly more capability and more equipment and more weaponry?
They've killed way more.
Really? You can point to a 4 to 6 hour period where they killed way more than 1,200 people?
Okay. I get what you're trying to do here. You're saying, oh, they killed a lot of people in a short time span. I'm saying
it shows intent, and shows intent is my whole point. And so my question is, if Israel has significantly more capability, so if Israel has significantly more capability than just grenades, rifles, RPGs, etc., then how come they have never even gotten anywhere near, you said way more, it's not even anywhere near that rate of killing that Hamas did with significantly less capability. So why didn't Israel, with way more capability, do anything even close to that?
That's interesting. So the argument here is that there was intent because it was a short period of time where they killed an enormous amount of people. Is that fair? So I make sure I understand this?
Well, I mean, it's a little deeper than that. Yes, intent shows, because if your intent isn't just to slaughter anyone that's in front of you, more or less, right? That's what Hamas did on October 7th, regardless if they thought it was. When you said 400 IDF earlier, a lot of them weren't, they just happened to be IDF, but they weren't even in uniform. So it's not even Hamas did that because, like, there's IDF.
Okay, well, you know, we'll go with the full 1,200 number. We won't even, you know, do the whole enemy combat thing. I'll be charitable. I'll say 1,200 killed. Fine, no problem. I find it interesting that you're saying, okay, this was intent, this was evil. They had, you know, shitty weapons. Israel has way better weapons, and they didn't kill that many people in the fast time. I would argue it's way more egregious to bomb a region for 3+ years, take away their food, take away their electricity, take away their water, run a full-on blockade, destroy hospitals, not allow them to get humanitarian aid. I would argue that's way worse, and that's way stronger intent than some dudes
you're
coming
being
in
disingenuous.
Allahu Akbar.
You're being disingenuous. They didn't take away.
See, this comes back to the issue with Zionism. You guys think Israeli life matters more than everyone else's life, and this is the problem. There's no proportionality with you guys.
This is just projection.
That's the issue.
This is just projection, and proportionality has never been a value in any. Yeah, no, it's not. Proportionality
1,200 versus 70,000.
Yeah,
1,200.
Sure.
70,
proportionality has never been a value of war ever in history. So the problem with you pro-Palestinian cucks is that you guys try to apply these singular standards or sometimes double standards to Israel, and you guys project the fuck out of your arguments when this is never. Can you name any war where proportionality has been some kind of value of war? And why does that fucking matter?
Well, okay, let's use the conflict that we had before. Proportionality is absolutely a strategic move because you need to hit them hard enough to send a deterrence without simultaneously starting a nuclear war or World War III. Proportionality absolutely matters in warfare. This is exactly why Iran would respond to the United States tit for tat. Proportionality. The only country that seems to not understand proportionality is Israel.
How many people did we kill in Iraq? Directly and indirectly. How many people did we kill?
That was a horrible situation. Right,
but it didn't start World War III or a nuclear war. It was 1 million fucking people. That's way more than 70 fucking thousand.
Are we going to say the people that died in combat? Are we going to say the people that died from disease, the sanctions? What are we talking here?
When you said 70,000 in Gaza, tell me, is that just people that died in combat? Or are you talking about malnutrition, disease, infection, etc.? Which one is it?
Well, again,
which one is it? Are you talking about those that died in combat? Or are you talking about just people that died because of the war period?
I am against the Iraq war.
I'm not asking what you're against. I'm asking you, when you said the 70,000 in Gaza, because you just said, well, we're going to talk about those that died in combat or those that died also indirectly. What are you saying when you say the 70,000 in Gaza? Does that include indirect deaths?
Well, there was the people died in many different ways. So
okay, so is the answer
disease, malnutrition?
So perfect.
So many different ways they
so
died.
all you have to do is say yes, Nick. I meant indirect. So there you go. You just answered your own question. Okay,
it's
perfect.
all of it.
Great, perfect. So you just answered your own question. So why did you ask me about Iraq?
I didn't. You brought up Iraq.
You literally said, "Are you talking about direct deaths? Or you said combat deaths, or those that even died not in combat?" You literally just asked me that 2 minutes ago, dude. How do you not remember?
Because you brought up Iraq and you were saying how many people died, and then I said, well, it depends on how you're going to do it. I was telling you.
It was after it was just, dude, just rewind on the YouTube. It was after I told you 1 million people died. It was after I said that.
And then I asked, are we talking about via combat, not combat? Because that was obviously a long conflict. We were there forever.
Right.
And then 1 million people died. And then if to differentiate it, but with Gaza, it's way more easy to explain. They got bombed. The people that didn't bomb that died, a lot of times maybe they got crushed by something. Now, malnutrition, disease, infection.
Right. It's literally the same thing, dude. When we count the million in Iraq, it's not just specifically those that were bombed. We're counting everyone.
And who dragged us into that war in Iraq?
Okay, you're trying to deflect, but I get it. You want to say it was
not
Israel,
but if you want to bring up Iraq, I'm just saying, like, it comes back to my bottom line: is we can't be allies with these people.
Should we be allies? Should we be allies with Germany?
I mean,
Germany was one of the main intelligence that got us into Germany. Okay, great. Germany was one of the main intelligence that got us into the Iraq war because they actually interrogated a guy who said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and we got that intel from Germany. And then it was only after the war had ended that they found out that guy actually was lying, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm asking you, should we be allies with Germany?
Well, here's the thing. Though Germany might have played a role in the whole,
it was the main role. It was the main role.
The Israelis played a significantly higher role. It's not
actually when the Israelis
came here and testified about it and said, I'll never forget. If you take out Saddam, it's going to have positive reverberations all across the region.
Right. This has nothing. Yeah. So this is a deflection. So when we're talking about the weapons, because we're talking about the weapons of mass destruction, Saddam Hussein was awful. And so nobody should deny that. But that's not really the point here. We're talking about weapons of mass
being there.
Great. Again, I agree. I don't think we should have been in the Iraq war either. And by the way, Israel also said we shouldn't have invaded.
But why were we there?
Because the reason you keep trying to deflect instead of going with what I'm trying to say and you keep interrupting me to deflect to a new position. First off, Israel literally said, the chief of staff of the Bush administration said the Israelis told us that we should not invade Iraq. That's a quote from the chief of staff. He said we should not actually have gone into Iraq and that Iran was actually the bigger threat and Iraq was not. When the Israelis were asked about, hey, do you have intelligence of weapons of mass destruction? The Israeli intelligence said, look, it's possible, but we actually don't have any evidence. We had evidence that he did have this this system for weapons of mass destruction, but we think he may have stopped it. We don't know. And we actually found the Israeli intelligence, not the Germany one, to be true, because when we were in Iraq, we did find documents that he did have programs for weapons of mass destruction, and he did stop it.
Are you? Hold on, let me stop real quick. When you're talking about Germany, are you talking about when the Iraqi intelligence officer met with a Al-Qaeda operative to pass anthrax? Are you talking about that?
I don't know anything about the anthrax thing, so I think you're thinking of something different. I don't know if you're Googling or people are giving you information, but they're not doing you justice.
I'm not sure
what you're talking about with the anthrax, but
the only thing I ever fact checked during this entire conversation was the
I don't care. You can look it up. That's fine. I don't really care. I was just wondering, what are you reading?
I don't do that. I go off the top. Pause. I don't research on the internet as I'm doing a debate.
That's fine. That's great. I don't really care. But
anyways, you do that. But
I haven't looked up anything other than the one thing that you asked me to look up where I read that quote.
That's demonstrably false.
Dude, I've been staring at the camera the whole time. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, I pulled up.
You pulled up things on your phone.
Yes, because you lied about the Apache helicopter. So instead of just saying you're lying and you being like, no, I'm not, and I say, yes, you are, I pulled up the fact check of the Apache helicopter. So, dude, I don't want to hear your bitching about how you got fucking fact checked. I don't give a shit.
Dude, I don't. And not pulling out.
You literally told me. You literally told me to look up the 14 points. You said, "Yeah, look it up, man."
Yeah,
Dude,
because you were like, you're wrong. And I was
yeah,
like, no,
you're
I'm not, but
just
look it up.
fucking bitching right now. I don't give a shit. Who
I'm not
cares?
bitching, I'm just, I
You
just find it
are.
interesting
I'm
how-
going back to what I was saying. I don't give a shit. Who cares? Fucking, I don't care, dude. Look up whatever you want. Stop bitching and crying and whining. Back to what I was saying.
Nobody's whining.
You're literally whining right now. Oh, you look stuff up. Okay, great, dude. Anyways, back to what I was saying. With the fucking, I don't know about the anthrax thing, so I can't answer you. Maybe that was about a part of it. I have no idea. It doesn't fucking matter because it's not even what we're talking about. With the Iraq war, I'm telling you, the chief of staff specifically said that Israelis told us that it actually wasn't worth going into Iraq. Iran was actually a bigger threat. And on top of that, with the Israeli intelligence, they specifically said, and they were correct, that they were doing weapons of mass destruction before, but he thinks, or they think that he actually stopped that program, which we found to be true. So you can't even argue against that. I was just asking, do you think we should be allies with Germany for giving us that faulty information?
So let me make sure I'm correct on this. So you're saying that he did have weapons of mass destruction, and that he destroyed them before we got in?
No, I said he had a program where he wanted to aim towards that, and he stopped the program. I want to say, I don't know the year, so I'm not even going to try to guess right now. And it's
That's
true.
fine.
That's
Okay.
true. We know that because we did find
Now-
documents on that.
Now, and here's the thing. This is why I asked you, because what happened was Israeli intelligence, that's why I'm saying this, passed off information that a Iraqi intelligence officer met with, it was either Mohammed Atta or one of the hijackers in Germany, because you're correct, Mohammed Atta did reside in Germany for a period of time, to pass anthrax. And then obviously we saw when the anthrax, when the
Wait,
first
are
person
we still
died of
talking
the
about
anthrax-
Iraq?
The anthrax was a significant part of Iraq.
You're saying Mohammed Atta,
that
one
was-
of the hijackers of 9/11. Are we still talking about Iraq, or what are you talking about? Oh, you're saying we went into Iraq because of Mohammed Atta being in?
Oh, yes, because there was because
Oh,
you said
sure,
Germany,
whatever.
so I'm trying to figure out if what you're saying, if the Germany you're talking about is the Germany that I'm thinking about, because there was German involvement. But what I'm saying is that the intelligence came from Israel, and they claimed that an Iraqi intelligence operative met with Mohammed Atta or one of these hijackers to pass off anthrax, or for like a 9/11 meeting or something like that. But anthrax was a part of the Iraqi angle. That's why Colin Powell got on there and said, said, oh yeah, weapons of mass destruction, we got anthrax here too. And then when they found the anthrax, what did they say? Dead to America, dead to Israel. And again, look, we can have a whole discussion on the.
I know what you're speaking of, and that's true too, but it's just
I know you want to
irrelevant.
talk about that off center, but to fit, because I never got to finish what I was saying. I just don't think that we should be supporting Israel. I think we just need to let them defend themselves and deal with themselves, and then everything's going to iron its way out, because without us, Iran will destroy them, and it will force them to do some type of diplomacy. I don't think they've added as much value as you claim. I think they're one of our worst allies.
Every number
I'm
I
not a
give
fan of
you
supporting them.
is able to be searched up. It's not my claim. It's just the facts. You can look up any of the statistics I
which
brought
number?
up. Any of them. You said of the things that I listed earlier with the 6% of their GDP and the exports and all of it, everything. You can look all of it up.
I am not refuting any of that. I am
You
not disputing
said,
any of
and
that.
I quote, it's
I am
not
so-
as much as you claim. That's all I claimed. And all of that is 100% verifiable.
I'm talking from a holistic standpoint where we don't get benefit from being with them. I'm not refuting your actual numbers of what you mentioned. No, that's fine. What I am saying is that still does not justify our support of them. I don't think that we get enough in return for all that we give them. And again, I'm not going to say the $4 billion like these other idiots or APAC. That's low IQ shit. The real power is our insurance, which is not tangible. Like, who cares about APAC?
Again,
There's other stuff.
I agree to some extent. The
fact that
problem
we
is that
stand by
most
them.
of it is actually America that doesn't want to let Israel go, not the other way around. And that's
But
because,
why?
yeah, I already went over this a lot earlier. It's fucking 1:40 in the morning. I just have one quick question. If you want,
Jews. That's why.
sure, yeah, okay. Anyways, it's very clear because of Chinese and Russian influence. And do you even know what Operation SIG is? When I brought that up earlier, do you know what that is?
What is it? Go ahead, tell me.
It's a lot, but
I can bring
just,
up random operations names and
no,
like,
this is very relevant. It's actually Soviet disinformation campaign. Yon Pasepa, who was the top defector of the Soviet Union, specifically actually talked about this. There was others too, but he was the top one that actually talked about this.
He did a very long YouTube video about this. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yes.
sure. Anyway, so I think that, I mean, no, I don't think, I know it still plays out today, even through other things with the Muslim Brotherhood, the 100-year plan, Qatar. And so I think it actually is America's interest because of that, and they won't let Israel go because of that. And they actually have stopped Israel from doing a lot of stuff that could have prevented anything with the IRGC and Hezbollah and the PLO and Yasser Arafat if we didn't stop them before. And so we wouldn't even be talking in the same context today if it wasn't specifically for American intervention against Israel. But regardless, I have a quick question before we end.
Sure.
Do you think Judea Samaria, West Bank, is Palestine?
That is going to be another debate, my friend.
All right,
That is going to be another
let's
debate.
set that up some other time then.
That is a full-on other debate if we're going to have that, have that conversation.
All right, let's set that.
So
It doesn't have to be like tomorrow or anything, but let's set that up another time.
It's fine. We can set that up. If you want to do a debate, I know we were talking about the Oslo Accords earlier. I'd be happy to have a debate with you about who's a bigger.
I would love to get back to Israel-Palestine because that's just what I debate, and you and I agree on some stuff already about America.
Yeah, if you want to talk about who's a bigger hurdle to peace, we can have that discussion. I know that we mentioned Oslo Accords or whatever, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have that discussion on TikTok, bro, because most people are not going to know what the hell we're talking about. You talk about the Peel Commission, the UN resolution, Oslo Accords, Abraham Accords. They're going to be like, what is this? This is boring.
Fuck them. I don't care.
But we can
people
have that
either
discussion.
watch or they don't. I have about almost 5,500 people watching. If they get bored and it goes down to 2,000, I don't give a fuck. I don't. Whatever.
Yeah. The other thing too is that guy kept muting me and shit, dude. He kept interjecting and muting me.
To be honest with you, and he's a friend, so I'm not going to talk shit about him, obviously. But I didn't like that. Anyways, I appreciate, even though we don't agree, I appreciate us finally having this discussion. It doesn't have to be anytime soon, but we can talk about the shit after about like Oslo and fucking two-state solution.
That's why I was pissed off when you came in. Like, I wasn't like I was pissed off at you. I was like just annoyed by him by interrupting me and talking smack. And then he tried to act the victim. Like, why are you saying ad hominems that I'm fat? Like, dude, you were talking smack to me for a while before he even came in. That's why I was talking about the 70,000 percentage, all that crap, because we were talking about that before.
Maybe sometime next week maybe, or something we can get back, or later this week, or no, it's already Wednesday, huh? Yeah, it's already Wednesday. Maybe next week.
Yep, that works for me, man. We'll figure it out.
All right, thanks, man.
Judea Samaria, Oslo Accords, whatever you want to debate.
Yep. All
right, man.
Bye.
Peace.
Oh, I am getting tired. That's why I had to end that, you guys. I'm sorry. It was like hit me like a rock. Set up a fucking camera again. Where the fuck is it? There it is. All right, you guys. If anyone downloaded, I know Joe said he did, and I know other people said they did, but if anyone, and if you guys want to come up on TikTok real quick, come up. If anyone downloaded the first part of that live, then let's talk about that. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. You know what the problem with this you mingle debating is because these fucking people get cooked by me. I post them on fucking YouTube, and then they get all embarrassed and sad, so they put in privacy complaints on YouTube to try to get it taken down. YouTube doesn't take it down for that, but you have to like blur it, and it's so fucking annoying. I got 2 privacy complaints while I was just live right now. So I have to go in there and fucking whatever. No, I mean, whatever. Anyways, this is your next biggest video since Sneeko. Yeah, listen, we need to get that first debate, because the second debate, let's be honest, like, I think I cooked him on a lot of stuff, but it was boring, because it's like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. No, I kind of agree with that. And it was just like pedantic. The first debate about Israel-Palestine, because that's what I want to debate. I don't give a shit about your opinion on this or that. I want to debate the Israel-Palestine stuff, because it all stems down to Israel-Palestine, because even fucking Amrou was saying specifically, the reason he thinks we shouldn't, help them or do any of this is because specifically, Israel, and then he lists out all these awful things about Israel, right? And a lot of it has to do with the Israel-Palestine stuff. And so it always stems down to that. So that's why I debate that, because if I can debunk you on these ideas about Israel-Palestine and all the bullshit that people try to say about Israel, then then the rest of it doesn't actually fucking matter as much. Or maybe it slightly matters. Like, let's say some things, whether it be Myron or somebody else says, has some weight to it, it ends up becoming significantly less. The reason Israel is seen as this or that by people like Amrou is because it ends up being like a totality of everything. But if you can actually start to limit that, and then you just end up finding out that Israel is just like any other fucking country. Yeah, there's some shit that's bad, some shit that's fucking exaggerated like crazy. Anyways, Max, what's up, bro?
I just wanted to say I enjoyed watching you debate, and enjoyed watching you versus Dr. Hotha the other night as well.
Thanks.
Man, it was crazy. I went on to this one panel that was watching you right when you were on Joe's, and man, the girl tried to say you can't fucking debate, like this crazy left lunatic, and I was like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I argue with Nick and I disagree with Nick on things sometimes, but holy cow, like if I'm not like mentally prepared or have a computer, like I have like absolutely no fucking chance. So I thought that was stupid. Like I think you're a great debater. So and
Even though it took him a while and he blocked me and was definitely ducking me, whether he wants to admit that or not, I'll at least give him some credit today because because I have a lot of stamina when it comes to this. And if I knew we were going to be doing this, I would have prepared even more. I would have maybe took a nap early or something. But we went for what, like fucking 4 hours? So it's actually kind of nice to find somebody that does also have the stamina, because sometimes you debate people after an hour, you can already tell they're just like, you know, and I don't blame them. A lot of people don't like debating for that fucking long, but I don't mind it.
I'm starting to like feel like the horseshoe theory is real because like he's like a super like Groiper kind of like horseshoe right winger, and then it's weird how so many like leftist pro pallies like on other panels were like taking his side. Like it just I kind of like was like disillusioned like when I went in and was just like feeling out the landscape of things. It's also weird too, the argument with the Iraq thing, not that it's relevant, but like everyone always brings up what Bibi said, but like you said and others have said, Bibi wasn't even in the Israeli government at the time. He was just a private citizen, right? The official Israeli government wasn't telling us. So I don't know why they
I feel like I didn't bring that up, but that's true.
I feel like he knew that too. I think he knew that he was being sneakish there. Yeah, but yep, can't wait to watch you debate him again. I'll drop down.
All right, peace, bro. Bob, what's up?
What's up? I wanted to point out because you guys debated for the hospital thing for a while about the hospitals being destroyed, and then he completely changed his argument about them being destroyed, and then went to partially operational.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand is partially operational can literally mean they just don't have enough beds for the amount of patients they have. If they have an increased amount of patients and don't have enough beds, that's partially operational, and they classify it as partially operational.
I didn't say specifically the beds, but I was saying literally all of this, and it's just like, that's why I think he knew that, and that's why he said, okay, fine, by destroyed I meant, you know, not destroyed at all, and it's like, yeah.
So everybody's like, W Nick. Honestly, W Donnie, because if it wasn't for me being such an amazing wife, sharing my husband with you every fucking night.
Oh yeah, you did amazing.
This wouldn't be a thing.
Wait, what do you mean? You were sharing? Awesome. Wait, what did you do?
I'm sharing you.
Like allowing you to debate
the rest of the world.
Oh, sharing. Sorry, I'm so dumb. I was thinking sharing like TikTok sharing. I was like, wait, what did you do? Yeah, that's true. My wife is absolutely an incredible, lovely, beautiful, sexy, beautiful woman, and
not every wife would allow this. Just saying.
That is true. Another thing he kept saying is doctors said that there was no Hamas inside of hospitals. Doctors Without Borders literally came out and said there was armed men with guns inside their hospitals. Like they came out and announced that themselves.
I didn't know that. Like, thank you for that information.
They released it. They didn't say Hamas, but they said armed men with masks and guns.
Right.
So it's like
Caleb said if I had Nick, I wouldn't share him. You see?
Who said that?
I had
Caleb.
I had 3 monitors open. I had your YouTube open, your TikTok on my phone, and then Twitch open. I was moderating.
Do you know how many fucking text messages I got at the same time?
Oh, it was crazy.
Oh my god. That's crazy. Joe.
MSF? Yes, MSF works with doctors.
Is Joe here?
It's all Joe's fault. No, he's probably asleep by now.
No, he was just texting. He just texted me literally right now.
Was he? Yeah. Joe and I were talking privately about how nice he was being to you. That he's never ever been this nice to opposition.
I was a little shocked at that. He was not at first, but once we kind of calmed down, he did soften up a little bit.
I was so frustrated when he did that. Oh my god! And the comment section was like,
the chat was on fire today. On fire. And they were so supportive.
Somebody just texted me that Myron turned off his chat halfway through because people were saying he was getting cooked.
He blocked everybody that was in there.
No, but he went to sub only. Like, he went to sub only, meaning like you had to be a subscriber to actually comment. Ouch.
Thank you, straight out.
But we need to admit that the fact that he didn't run away and actually tried so badly to.
Well, you want to know because he kept calling me a fucking nobody over and over, and I wasn't worth
the credit for that.
Right. Well, let me tell you something. And so I'm glad we finally had this because, listen, I told you guys, everyone kept saying, debate Myron, debate Myron. And I'm just like, look, I'm not going to ankle bite. He said no. He blocked me. He ran from me. I said it, to be fair. I said he's an adult. If he doesn't want to debate, he doesn't have to. I've been saying that for months, right? And so I will give him some credit. And I think he now knows I'm not just some fucking nobody, at least when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, because if he really thought I was doing bad, he wouldn't continue on debating. You don't debate for fucking almost 6
100%.
hours if you thought, oh, I was beating you in the first hour, so you don't debate an extra fucking
And you
4 or
also
5
wouldn't
hours.
try to be civilized with the person that you're
Nick,
arguing with.
I wish you would have said.
Because there
"So
was
are
a
you gonna
level of respect, I guess, at least to speak to you in a civilized manner.
I wish you would have said, "Hey, you're gonna unblock me on X now."
No, I don't care if he. I thought about that as a joke, but I don't really care if he
Yeah.
blocks me on it. Listen, in the end, and I truly do mean this. I'm not just like trying to kiss his ass or anything. Like in the end, he is an adult. If he doesn't want to debate me ever again, even after today, that's his prerogative. If he wants to block me, that's his prerogative. Like I will make fun of you for a little bit for it, but I just move on. Like if somebody doesn't want to debate, they don't want to debate. Mehdi Hassan just blocked me on fucking X, so you know, hopefully one day I get to debate that fucking idiot. But you know,
Great job, man.
thanks, brother.
I just wanted to say one thing, and that is, thank you for doing everything you do. And Danny, thanks for letting Nick come out and play.
Thank you.
You know what? I realized something that is
More
similar.
recognition for the wife.
You know what? One thing, real quick, hold on. Another thing I noticed
I'm the
about
Nick.
Myron, something I noticed about Myron also that he did similar to Sneeko is when Sneeko was getting cooked on the Israel-Palestine debate, he shifted to like Epstein files. Myron kind of did that a little bit today. Once he was getting cooked on the Israel-Palestine stuff, he kind of shifted to just like the Iran war, which again, I told him, I was like, look, this is a boring conversation because you and I kind of agree in some aspects. We don't agree with the specifics. I acknowledge that. But it's like, why are you deflecting to this topic? Because it's not even something we full on disagree with. And then it's just like,
Yeah, then
Now-
at
now
that
to
point
be-
it just becomes like a conversation.
now to
that-
be fair to him, there's only so much shit you can talk about with Israel-Palestine. We did go for 5-6 hours. So to be a little bit fair to him, I guess it kind of had to get deflected to another point of view. But still, it's just like, weren't we talking about Israel-Palestine? Why are we fucking deflecting all this other shit?
Can I ask a question? Wouldn't the whole idea of indiscriminate bombing, even if we agreed that Israel was indiscriminate bombing, wouldn't that debunk the whole claim of genocide? Because the whole idea of like you are bombing Hamas members and not caring that civilians are there, that still doesn't mean it's a genocide. That your intent is still to unalive Hamas members,
Yep.
and just because civilians die, that isn't a genocide. So even if you concede and say, you know what, fine, it's indiscriminate bombing, that still debunks your point of genocide. Correct?
Yeah, well, to be fair, and he said after, and I think he only deflected that because he realized he was wrong about the death toll. But he said, oh, by indiscriminate, I mean by far mostly just like the buildings. But in that case, I don't give a fuck. Fuck their buildings.
Right.
Fucking destroy all that. I don't give a fuck. Dude, I don't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe to be fair to him, he doesn't know my position. But I think Israel should have fucking taken control of Gaza and the Gazans should have fucking got the fuck out. But that's a totally different argument.
Right. Concrete
As an
is
Israeli, I
concrete.
can tell you that almost all Israeli hospitals currently are not fully operational, and it's been that for forever. And not
I
because of
also
war.
got you a bunch of fast food, babe.
Thank you, baby.
You
I
deserve
appreciate
a
it.
gross meal.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat. Let me catch up with these super chats real quick. Thank you all so much for coming up. Nope. Chaim Shali.
Bye.
Thanks, Archie.
Thank you, Nick. Have a good one.
Bye bye. Let me.
By the way,
I'm
just
sure I
another
messaged.
like big thanks to all you guys for like watching, supporting. It was wild. You guys were just in there like holding it down.
Let him know Nick. Let
crazy.
Nick know Myron never had a security clearance. Ooh, I didn't know that. Okay,
Ooh.
so let me catch up with these super chats because I feel bad
I
when I
always miss
don't
things.
read them all. So I'm gonna catch up with these super chats and then we'll end. So first super chat, we have been waiting a long time to see you debate Myron and you didn't disappoint. You destroyed him. Great job, Nick. Thank you. Even his voice sounds stupid. All right, thanks, Legima. The real Sal says, when you cook this guy dinner on me, anything you want. Thank you. Gil, real Sal, you've given so many super chats. I'm sure you have definitely paid for some dinners, but thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother. Gil says, ask him about his shirt mocking the Holocaust of the Cookie Monster. Cook them all. He's the Holocaust denier. If you didn't know, I did know that, but again,
Maybe y'all can have that conversation.
yeah,
another
we can have that
time.
conversation separately because I know a lot of things he
He
has
will
said.
destroy you.
Yeah, I've known a lot of things he said about that. And I've seen in videos that I would absolutely be able to destroy because I have studied the documents and the Holocaust and the Wannsee conference and all that. But again, I just didn't want to deflect to that. But I get you. The older millennial, Joe, says, yeah, sure, Myron sucked because of the questions I asked him. I'd rather be a fatso than be Myron. Real Sal says, Myron is a part of the 67 IQ tribe. Wymie says, chat be nice. Legima says, I vomit seeing him with the stars and stripes. Ilmatic Adam says, debate him on the 271K he always talks about. Yeah, I would destroy him in that. But that again, in the future. Blue Moon, the fact he has a USA flag pretended to be an American while he is, what does that say? Isis Momo Redas? That invaded USA makes me sick. How much American spend to save his family from Islam? Giannis says, tell him about the bombing of Japan in World War II. Sami says, every time he says genocide, I want to fart. Made me smile. Says, Myron trying to keep it civil now so he doesn't become Sneeko 2.0. Older Millennial says, Myron knows he lost and is now trying to sound as gracious as possible. Made me smile. Says, for context, this Myron guy is a 35-year-old pseudo-dating coach who's been in one relationship and the girl dumped him. Is that true? Okay. Legima says, and thank you for the big super chat, Legima, for this one, $50. Think of how we have reduced them to whining, lying, and grasping at straws to demonize us and call us their predators. There can be no doubt what they had planned for us in 48, 67, and 73. Look at what we have reduced them to. Losers to the core. Made me smile says, Nick, he's acting soft now to stop the bleeding. Keep pummeling him. Mixed by Colt says, Myron's mic placement is off. It's a cardioid pattern mic. He needs to point the top center of his mic towards his mouth, not come at it from the side. Yeah, I noticed that because he was a little quiet. And you're right.
I'll
He
be
was
Mixed by Colt, by the way. Thanks for showing love tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mixed by Colt. Made me smile says, proportionality is a childish argument. You hit me, I hit you back. You win wars by being disproportionate. 100%. I've always hated that argument by the pro-pal. Like, ooh, proportionality. Fuck proportionality. If you throw a fucking penny at me, I'm going to throw a brick right back at you. And if you think that's evil, honestly, I don't give a fuck.
Maybe don't throw the penny then.
Yeah, don't fucking throw the penny because I'm going to throw a fucking brick back at your face. Cry about it. Made me smile. Moron Gains. Thank you so much for the super chat. Older Millennial. Again, thank you. Joe. Myron was getting destroyed so much in his chat. He just made it sub only. Keep doing your thing, Nick. That's hilarious. The Real Sal. Myron made a huge mistake doing this. LOL. Bro just ended his career and will be crashing out after about doing this. Dinner is on me. This dude needs to get off X and touch grass. No, I think hopefully he doesn't feel that way. I would like to talk to him more about it. Again, I still think he's evil and his Holocaust denial and all that shit's evil. I'm not trying to suck his ass or anything like that. I'm just saying that it is still nice talking with somebody that is a prominent pro-Palestinian than these Umingle people. Not that I don't like going on Umingle. I'll continue to do that. I'm just saying from my point of view. It helps me get better with my debates too.
It's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe, yeah. The Blue Moon Blue Moon says Palestinians grape hostages and buildings. Why should they care about the buildings? Sammy says, dude really suggests that the IDF assassinates every Hamas member where there are dozen thousands of them, including their mass incubating wives. Yeah. Giannis says, tell Moron about the Uyghurs in Xinjiang camps. Yeah, I think he probably knows about that. To be fair to
Mary in
Myron,
the comments is like, I hope nobody has to work tomorrow morning. I'm like, Nick probably has to work tomorrow
I
morning.
do have to work tomorrow morning. To be fair, Myron did say he has a problem with China. Now, I don't know if he knows about the Uyghurs, but I assume he probably does. I didn't ask him why at least if that was one of the reasons. So maybe if we talk again, I'll ask him. Blue Moon says the more Momos, Samaks, like Myron or Somalis, like Myron family invaded Western countries, the more these countries hate Israel. Strange, right? 100% Blue Moon. So interesting how there's a parallel feature of people that hate Israel in our country with the amount of immigrants from like Somalia we're bringing in and shit like that in Sudan. He's Sudanese, but yeah. Uzi says the only thing getting destroyed is Myron. Okay. Eitan says Israel does not choose how Gazans will protect their citizens. If they hide in hospitals and population centers, it's their decision. 100%. Israel's number one job, just like every other government's number one job, is to protect their own people how they see fit. And that includes Hamas, by the way. Hamas shouldn't give two shits about Israelis. They should be protecting their people. They don't protect their people. I'm just saying they should be. So yeah, I don't really give a shit. How about this? I'll start caring about the Palestinians as much as the Palestinians start caring about the Palestinians. Because if you can't care about your own people, don't fucking ask me to start caring about your people. Omer says, why do 2 million people need 36 hospitals? They actually have more than 36 hospitals. That's just like that's actually just the main centers. There's actually a lot more than that. And you're right. Why the fuck do 2 million people need all that? The Real South says, Myron just gave us Sneeko 2.0 debate. Lioness says, Hamas hides our hostages in the hospitals. That's literally true. I can't read the name because it's Hebrew. I think it says Aflim. Aleph Pe Resh
Ephraim?
Yod Mem Sofit.
Ephraim?
Maybe Ephraim. Was October 7th indiscriminate? Literally. The Real Sal, Concrete Bricks Lives Matter. Mifodi says it would make a great drinking game. Drink a shot each time Myron starts an answer with again. I would lose consciousness after 10 minutes. We Are One says Marari City damage is very comparable to Gaza. Jesus, hold on. My fucking hair's all over the place. And
Your
that
hair
was
is something tonight.
yeah, and that was from Philippine government freeing its own citizens in that city from ISIS terrorists. I'll look into that. I actually don't know much about that, but that's fair. John LA says, I stand with Israel, the Jewish state forever. The Real Sal says, kids, there is a lesson to learn from this all. There is a lesson to learn from this all, and that is listen to those who actually study and know what they're talking about, and not to those who come from the leering tribe and podcast bros. Mulligan says, is Myron a psyop? He did work for them boys. Mulligan Man 573 says, I am with Myron, just want other opinions. I appreciate that, Mulligan. Welcome. I can respect people that are with the other side but want to hear other opinions. The Cinnamon says, he have to be paid to be this dumb and disingenuous. Ephraim says, again, by the way, Myron is constantly whispering in Sneako's ear. Yeah, I know they're friends. Lazy, Myron equals controlled opposition, a term often used to describe someone who appears to oppose a cause while actually steering supporters. Thank Kelly. While actually actually steering supporters in ways that benefit the other side. There's something wrong, says Myron excuses Iran's threats, terror funding their countdown clock for Israel's destruction, and 60% uranium while pushing baseless anti-Israel Jewish conspiracy. He's not stupid, he's being paid. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't have any proof for that. So there's something wrong, says, I'm a soldier in IDF 123 houses in Lebanon, and Gaza has a copy of Mein Kampf. All this BS of free Gaza from Hamas. Gaza is Hamas. Hezbollah is most of Lebanon. They all have friends and families. I don't agree with you. I appreciate your service in the IDF, but I think Hezbollah is actually pretty unpopular in Lebanon. So I understand you might have some more information than me, but I like to think that Hezbollah is not super popular. But maybe they're more popular than I think.
Can we just acknowledge for the record that you were not prepared? It was literally spur of the moment, and you still dog walked to death. Like, imagine if you had like a,
Well,
a
to be
nap
fair, I've been
and
prepared
time
for
to
the past
like.
5 years, to be fair. But
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the point.
That's why it was so funny. Was like you're googling stuff. You can ask Donnie. She saw me. I was just walking back and forth in the
Dude,
room. I wasn't even googling
It's
stuff.
all in your brain.
Yes.
This is what they don't. They literally think you're just reading
Right.
AI.
That's
how
the funny
knowledgeable
thing is
you are.
that they think they're actually complimenting me when they think I'm
Yes.
so intelligent that I must be reading stuff. I did Google a couple things because he lied, and I knew, like, for example, he brought up the Apache helicopter. That was debunked literally over 2 years ago. But I knew if I just said that was debunked, he would have just been like, "Nuh-uh," and I would have been like, "Uh-huh." So I just brought it up real quick. But for the most part, I wasn't even sitting at the computer desk. I was literally just walking back and forth because it's like when
Yeah,
I'm
but
on
the
the
fact
phone.
that your brain can even do that to like check the exact thing that you need to check.
Right.
Like like
Right.
you're already
Exactly. Yes. Like he should have asked himself, how did Nick bring that article up so fast? You know why? It's because
Exactly.
I fucking know this shit, dude.
Because you know what he's
know
gonna
this.
say.
Yes, I know it. I know where it's at. I'm literally autistic. I am on the spectrum. I'm a fucking savant. I know this shit. I know
Definitely.
exactly where it's at. So it's like,
And also, when you're in your flow, you can just tell like what you're doing.
yes, I'm willing to
Or at
admit
least me,
I don't
'cause
have
at
this.
point I know you. But
Right, I'm willing to admit, like, when it comes to other specific, some things I'm actually just as good at, but there's some things that I don't know, and I'm willing to have that discussion, not a debate. But when it comes to this topic, dude, I will, if Myron really wanted me to, and we debate this again, and it's about Israel-Palestine only, I will blindfold myself. I have no problem doing that. If he truly wants me, I will fucking put on a blindfold, and I will debate him. Anyways, let me get through this.
you
Landon
should do
Lowe,
that anyway. That'd be funny.
Landon Lowe says, Myron, you are being one variable, also him, Jews. Rask Wando says, the dictatorship work in the Middle East. Any
So
thoughts?
seriously, you should do a blindfold live and then be like, if you want to debate Nick without any sources, come on up.
Yeah, I'll do a whole live with the fucking blindfold. I don't mind.
That'd be great.
F Effect says, thank you, Nick, and yes, thank you to Nick's wife for sharing Nick for sure. ML Fam, he's doing Significant work to awaken the masses. Thank you, wife. By the way, how can I get on
It's
the
my
cam?
pleasure.
How can I get on the cam? Is it Zoom or TikTok? Generally, it's TikTok that I bring people up on. But with Myron today, it was on Discord. I don't have TikTok. Thank you for what you do, fam. NK. No problem, man. Yeah, today with Myron, I was on Discord and he turned his camera on. But yeah, there's different ways. Sammy says, people tend to think you get $7,000 a post, but don't know that you're actually getting 10,000 or 14,000. Today's cook was so spicy, I think you'll be upgraded to $25,000 per post. Goy tier. Thanks, Donnie, too. I am
Let's
the top.
go.
I am the top goy. Ephraim says, W Donnie, your mods are quick. Thank you for the different gifts from Souffle, Ragtime, Leroy, Effect. Thank you guys so much. Sammy says, and we're almost done, I promise you guys. Sammy says, even if they claim proportionality, I think it's still bad for them because with Hamas's rate, there'd be 70,000 dead Israelis in 14 days. Israel's kind. Yeah, that's what I was trying to, maybe I should have said it that way. I was trying to get Myron to understand that. And I don't know if he was just purposely deflecting or if he just didn't understand my point. But when I was bringing up rate is because that literally shows intent. Like you said, even with Hamas's rate, which actually would have been worse if they kept going because they were stopped after 6 hours. But if Hamas had that same rate, you're right. It would have been only 2 weeks before 70,000 would have been killed. Tim, and by the way, that's with significantly less capability. Tim Sheehy says, Crucible crew thinks you got the W. Sub only was the clench, but you were up. Wait, Tim Sheehy, when you say Crucible crew, you're with the Crucible, like with Andrew Wilson? Or are you saying that... Like, are you with them? What do you mean by that? I'd actually like to know more. That's pretty cool because I love Crucible. Jasmine says, when he said there's Jews in Brooklyn. Yeah, I know, right? Morpheus. Yeah, when he said, why would they do a party in Brooklyn? Yeah, because they're fucking Jews, dude. Morpheus, thoughts on bombs in basement? William Rodriguez? I don't know. Luca says, thanks, Nick. I was so busy at work. Time flew by. You're welcome. Thanks, Ragtime and AX for the jewels. Hay says, half the combo goes like, trust me, bro, crazy. And then Rask says, Cuban dictatorship, one of Israel's worst enemies. Yeah, that's true.
I say some thanks to our TikTok gifters tonight because we can't even go through the list because it was mostly on Joe's, but like, yeah, a couple of people. Lauren, holy shit. Kelly, Kirk Burner, Colt, Kineret, everybody.
Oh, Tim Sheehy says we were watching, and somebody else said Crucible crew is just fans. Oh, okay, cool. Well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate that, and say hello to the Crucible crew. Wait, who are they actually? Is it related to the Crucible for Andrew Wilson, or is this just a separate thing called Crucible? And also, where are you guys? At least that was the Discord verdict. Oh, okay, you guys have a Discord. Okay, cool.
Everybody wants to know, will you upload the first part?
I
also
will
to me?
upload the first part. Joe, he's tired, to be fair. He's going to go to bed, but he said in the morning he will send it to me. And yes, Andrew's Discord. Oh, okay, gotcha. Probably should have known that Andrew had a Discord. Duh. I will upload it tomorrow, guys, depending on if Joe gives it to me right away or not. But somebody else was saying that they already had the live, so if you guys send it to me somehow, then I can work on it at least tomorrow morning and upload it. Obviously, I'm going to go to bed soon, so I'm not uploading it tonight. But I'll probably upload part 1 and just call it part 1. And then the thing we just had here, I'll just upload as a separate YouTube video as part 2, maybe part 2/3. I don't know, whatever. We'll figure it out. All right, you guys, thank you so much on YouTube for the super chats and gifts. Thank you guys so much on TikTok during part 1 of the debate on Joe's live, and also this as well. 6 hours to edit. No, it won't take me 6 hours to edit because I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to, I'll probably put in like a cold open maybe at most, but then I just,
Yeah, you guys are literally the best ever. Thank you.
Thank you, LML. You need to be blindfolded while ball juggling to be credible. That's hilarious. All right, you guys. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all. I'm out. Lecho, Ladatov. God bless America. Peace.